What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Thomas Free Me TV and podcast show. What's happening, man? What y'all doing? What y'all got going on tonight? Man, I got a long one for you, man. You already know if you've been paying attention, you've been part of the show for a minute, you know that I have over 12 hours logged with Temujin Kinsu. If you're not familiar with who Temi Jin Kinsu is, he is an individual who was locked up in his early 20s. And this was in 1987. He was framed for a murder of a mayor's son, who was a crackhead, and he's been in prison ever since. The trial was so outrageous, it's what you would call a kangaroo court. It's a legal definition that just describes that pretty much the whole process of the court fell outside of the guidelines and constitutional laws. Yet, this man still sits in prison. Michigan has a governor who denied letting this man out at the beginning of the year, even with the overwhelming evidence pointing to his innocence, so much as the star witness who was in jail testified, that he was Temujin's cellie, and he came in there and just confessed the world to his cellie on the first night in there, and he testified that this guy was just a ravenous, murderous ninja killer. And then before he died of cancer. Right before he died, he had an epiphany that he was going to go meet his maker, and he wanted to come clean. And he did so on the news, about his whole story was fabricated, that Temujin was completely innocent, that they need to let him out. He just completely recanted his statement. So, yet, Temujin still sits in prison. So, one thing I want the listeners to really understand is that this man has been incarcerated for over 30 years. We're getting ready to go on 40. Hopefully not. Hopefully this is the last year if we can get enough people to apply pressure to this wonderful governor of Michigan. 3.5 decades. I just want you to stop and think about where your age is at right now and go back 35 years. Just go back 35 years and think about the life you have experienced for those 35 years. Just reflect on that for a minute. On all those years, just think about all those years, what you've done in 35 years. And this man, who was a child, who was a kid, has missed out on all those experiences, fighting for his life every one of those years, trying to get somebody to listen to him, trying to get somebody just to look at the evidence and just agree that it was just crazy talk. 35 years. It's crazy that here in the land of the free that we can incarcerate somebody in prison as the way as it is for 35 years and not have an internal investigation over such a preposterous trial that this man had. That's scary. It's scary to me, and it should be scary to every citizen to know that you can just be snatched up off the street and thrown through a mock trial just to be sentenced and convicted to cover up the conspiracy and the corruption of the mayor's son, which the mayor was probably into it as well. It's very, very scary, especially for me with the record that I have. And I'm out here trying to be a community leader and do good, but I only know what I know. And if I put myself somewhere in a dangerous position, who knows? Can I be snatched up? Sure, I could be snatched up and thrown away, and then I have to prove my innocence. I don't have to prove my guilt. They don't have to prove my guilt. I have to prove my innocence. I say that so you guys can reflect on that through the conversation. Just keep in mind, that we are used to speaking only for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. And how do you explain everything that's going through your mind in 15 minutes? You have to be very prompt. You have to be very fast. You have to be articulate. And you have to know what you want to say. There was many times I would call home and I wouldn't even say hello to my family because I knew that I had so much to get out. And time is always of the essence. You're always under a time crunch. There's always a delay coming. There's always, a deadline. And by the time you get to the law library, get your stuff, we're doing all of this ourselves. And there's no way that I can get people to really kind of understand the pressure that's on us every day when it comes to this, because we're fighting for our freedom. And I was a guilty man. Imagine being innocent, completely innocent. Imagine being just your innocent self in prison for 3.5 decades. This is your life. This is your life. You want somebody to listen to you. So Temujin speaks very fast, and sometimes it's hard to follow him because he's going through a large amount of things in a short amount of time. Now, granted, I have free access to him. Plus, he's on one of these old phones, probably, I'm sure, in a control room that they clear out, give him access to the phone. So it's loud, it's echoey. So there's a lot of times where I know what's going on, so I try to cut in. But it's not that he's, cutting me off, interrupting me, anything like that. Temujin is one of the nicest men that I've ever met in his position. So it has nothing to do with that. It's just that the man wants to come home. He wants to come home. This is an innocent man. He's still a kid. He's still a kid in the sense that when you leave and you go to prison, your time stops at the time that you left. You know what I mean? And it's up to you to either come to the understanding that life is still carrying on and you keep up with it. But a lot of people stay in that same mentality as when they left. So if they leave at 22, they come home at 50, they may still act like they're 22. So these are things that have to be understood. But let's get into it, man. Let's bring Temujin home. Let's bring Temujin home, man. You're trying to build a prison.
Yesterday, but we can't say anything publicly. All right. Well, we reached out to the CIU. We got a very, very positive message yesterday, and that's really all I can say. But things are much, much better than we thought they were. We knew they had concluded my innocence, but our concern was that it was taking so long to get anything done. And we've been assured at the highest level. That's all I can say is that it's absolutely being handled. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, there's no...
Not a spin. It's the first time we've gotten anything like this in 2 years from these people. So that was a huge, huge commitment on their part. And so, I want to honor that. But it's going to happen, and I don't think it's going to be much longer either.
I don't think it's going to be much longer either, partner. And I've been telling Paula that, yeah. and I think you'll be home soon, man, for real, for real.
Yeah, it sounds like... Well, we were pretty sure I was going to be home before Christmas this year because a lot of noise had been made about these Christmases since the Nolan article came out 3 years ago about Christmas, and that's, of course, when Paula came into my life. Then they did an article the next year, like, it's another Christmas, he's still in there. Another Christmas, he's still in there. So I don't think anybody wanted to see them do another Christmas article about me. But they've been very mum about the process. We knew they acknowledged my innocence quite some time ago, and we figured it would be pretty quick after that. We knew there was going to be a problem because St. Clair County was not, let's just say, happy, and leave it at that. And on the first case where they've had to, battle with a prosecutor, so that, as you know, what we've shared in the past, that was creating a lot of problems for us. And again, I can't say too much, but it looks like they're getting that all worked out. And what I hope the county, would have understood all along was that if you make this an ugly fight, then you place these people in the position of having to basically make a public spectacle. They have to do a hearing, and they have to say they did all these things, and they have to file public briefs and so on. I don't know why they would want that. If I'd done a bunch of bad things, it's a lot easier to just say that you're sorry than to have somebody come out and list all those bad things and tell everybody you know about those bad things. And that's kind of what they were doing. They were pushing it to that. And I was trying to make them understand, without being arrogant, justice is going to come in this case. This is not going away. It's being followed all over the world now. It's not going away. If you guys just say, hey, a mistake was made by a previous administration, could have been handled better. If you just left it at that and accepted the finding, then you don't place the Attorney General in the position of having to fight, because the only way to fight is to come out and say, okay, they did all these things to this guy. They did all these things wrong. They violated all these rules and codes and guidelines and laws and so on. There's no need for any of that if they just say, okay, we'll accept the finding. And I don't know if cooler heads prevailed or not, but it looks like there probably won't be a big ugly fight, and that's really good for everybody.
Well, this is what I don't understand, T. I mean, okay, they've acknowledged your innocence, but yet you're still in prison. This is what pisses me off. Listen, all of this red coat and all of this back office bullshit can be handled with you on the street. You know what I mean? For real. At least allow you a bond. You know what I mean? I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem with all of that, and you're absolutely right, the problem with the bond is this is not an appeal. What this is it's a very new thing. These CIUs are new. Michigan was supposed to do what was called an Innocence Commission many years ago, and Governor Granholm, would not move on that. She had no interest in it as the Attorney General, and she would not act on it as a governor. So it took, 2 more administrations through Snyder into Whitmer before we finally got an Attorney General who simply established a unit, and I love Dana for that. It took a lot of courage for her to do that. I'm sure she caught some flack for it. But we needed that because Michigan was leading the nation in wrongful convictions. And we had Michigan's famous because we're the state that had the lady that was doing the dog thing where she was planting cadaver bones on crime scenes, and we're also the state that was famous for the phony bite mark evidence, where they were convicting people on this completely fabricated bite mark nonsense.
Right.
There was a case. There's a case of a guy named Mike Christini. I was actually here with Mike Christini in 1994 to 96, and Christini was a dope fiend and very poor, and he had the most jacked up mouthful of teeth you ever saw in your life. And it looked like he'd been beaten with a hammer, basically. It was accused of a rape where he supposedly took this girl in this van and he brutally raped her, and he bit her multiple times. Well, this girl had these perfect dental impressions, and Mike had these bite marks, and he would, being a rapist, of course, in prison is a very bad thing. And he wanted everyone to know he was innocent. He would just walk around showing people these photos. Like, look, these are the evidence in the case. And even, with my minimal legal experience, I would look and say, those are definitely not your teeth. And so in that case, of course, Mike was convicted with this phony bite mark evidence. And they brought in this woman to say, oh, well, when you turn your head during the violent rape and the angle and the pressure, it fills in the gaps of the missing teeth as you're moving sideways. All this nonsense. She just made this garbage up. It was pure crap. Mike had a mouthful of broken teeth. The rapist had a mouthful of strong, clearly lined teeth. And it took Mike many years to get out. And he eventually got out. He got some compensation. But this was before we had an innocence unit in Michigan. We had the Detroit Crime Lab, which became nationally notorious for basically just saying whatever the police wanted them to say. You could shoot somebody with a .44, and they'd come back and find a .38 in your house and say, yep, that's the murder weapon.
Yeah, I know it, right?
Yeah, and they would explain why it looks like a .44 ripped through this person and through a door in a car next door, but it was actually just a tiny little .38. Just an amazing set of circumstances that it did all that damage. And
No, they
All that
will. They'll
said,
find they'll find a way to make the jury believe
oh
that you
yeah,
can change caliber.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Well, it looks like
absolutely,
this, but
absolutely.
you can take the bullet out and you can apply this and change the caliber to
Right, right,
this.
right.
And come on, stop it, man.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then so that was a huge problem here. And Kim Worthy, who was she was known for being very pro law enforcement, pro prosecution, very tough on crime. Even she, she came around and at some point said there's some serious problems here. And she was the first person in Michigan to establish a conviction integrity unit, bless her heart. And, that required her admitting that even during her administration, there were wrongful convictions. Now, a lot of them were very old wrongful convictions like mine. But that was Wayne County, and of course, I'm not from Wayne County. And even with all those cases where they were finding people innocent and clearing them, the other counties weren't doing that. Now, amazingly, and you probably know this from being in contact with some of our friends here in Michigan, now Macomb and Oakland and Washtenaw counties, which are major counties. Oakland, of course, is Pontiac, Michigan, and Washtenaw County is Ann Arbor, where the University of Michigan's at. They have put together integrity units also. And you have a new mindset where people are saying, yeah, there was a juggernaut to convict in the 70s and the 80s, and we put a lot of innocent people. And if those other counties did that, there must have been something wrong in our county. Oakland County has already done one exoneration very quickly, bless their hearts. And we have the prosecutors from Washtenaw County actually supporting us, supporting me. So you're seeing a significant change. And you remember when you and I first spoke, I said there was this impetus for criminal justice reform, but we weren't seeing that reform actually happening in many places. And now it's really moving in Michigan. We passed the Clean Slate Act, which helps you clear your record of some felonies and misdemeanors and drug cases and traffic infractions. And we got the Republicans to sign on to that. Our House and Senate is Republican controlled, and they agreed to it. We just passed a law that allows you to get rid of your first drunk driving. Again, the Republicans agreed to that. And now we have these conviction integrity units, and we have prosecutors who, instead of wanting to just lock everybody up and throw away the key, are actually willing to admit that their county made mistakes and overturn these bad cases. So I think this is really inspiring, and I hope more and more states start doing this. If we can do this as bad and as strict as Michigan was, and we're one of the worst in the nation for insane amounts of time, abuse of the natural life process, sentencing juveniles to life, and wrongful convictions, and atrocious medical care, diet, things like that. If we can do all that, then a lot of the more progressive states should be able to make some serious changes too.
Yeah. Well, and that's all I'm asking. Is okay. You guys take ownership of it. We know the system's messed up. We know it's a business. I want to hear them say that, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
get myself into a position to where they say, we know that this has been a business. It's okay. You can admit it. Let's just fix
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? We all know
The
it.
system itself, yeah, it was absolutely a business. Of course, it's a money-making machine. Yeah.
So, and it's okay. Let's just fix it. You know what I mean? Let's just fix it.
Yeah.
Get these people out and turn it into what it's supposed to be. We go through the penal stage
Right.
of trial, sentencing, all of that. That's the penal stage. When we get into the
Right.
prison is the the rehabilitative stage. This is where we're supposed to
Right.
learn
It's
about.
supposed to be.
Yes,
Exactly.
it's and that's what
Yeah.
we need to turn it into. And in order to do that,
Right.
we just have to get our communities more involved with the prisons. Stop making them so elusive for family members to get a hold of. You know what I mean? We just
Right.
have to stop
Right.
it. We just have to cut it out,
Yeah.
man.
Well, here the thing that people need to understand, and I always tell people this, is even if you don't care about prisoners, first you should care where your tax dollars are going, and secondly, you should care what's being done with them. So let's say you think everyone in here belongs in here, and you don't really care if they're fed dog food. Well, they're taking $2.6 billion in Michigan to feed them dog food. And then when they get out, they're angry and they're sick and they have serious medical problems. And we have rampant drug problems here and no treatment program, basically. The treatment program in the MDOC to get caught with drugs is they take away your visits, which just makes you use drugs more because now you have no family network. So what we do in Michigan, if you get caught using drugs, is we don't put you in a program and help you. You came to prison because you had an addiction. We make drugs readily available all through the compound and through the department. And with very little physical visiting, we know drugs come from staff, and this has always been known. The quantities do not come from visitors or mail; they come from staff. Now, the little tiny bits come in from the occasional visitor, and tiny bits come in from some kind of a mail scam, microscopic amounts.
Right. Yeah. The common user, the guy
Right.
that don't want to pay, or you know what I mean. He'll have his girl bring him in, and he'll smoke for the month, and she'll come in the next month. You know, some shit like that. But
yeah, so we have guys walking all over this compound, stoned out of their skull, and everything from heroin to Suboxone. We've had multiple deaths in the unit that I'm in from overdoses. A friend of mine overdosed, and fortunately, they literally brought him back to life. We had 3 deaths in my block in probably a 2-year period just from heroin overdoses. All people that I knew. And we just had a guy who overdosed on other medication. I think they were psychotropic meds that he was gulping down. And so, you know, and then we had a kid come into my unit, and he hung himself an hour after he got into the block and died. So that's what's going on in Michigan. And, you know, we have probably the worst director in Michigan's history. And she's so bad, there was a 6,000 person no confidence voting her by Michigan's corrections organization. Her name is Heidi Washington, and she could care less. Her first official acts were just to take things from prisoners and to make staff miserable, to violate the contract continuously, to deny programming. And so this 2.4, $2.6 billion that's being taken from the state, and we are the biggest budget in the state, by the way, corrections, is producing nothing but sick, angry, messed up, psychologically disturbed kids on a lot of psych meds.
And that's why I want to know,
psych meds.
Where's the money going? Where's the money going?
Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah, what they do is they appropriate money for a program. So I'll give you a great example for the listeners because I have personal knowledge of this. Many years ago, the MDOC created a prisoner reentry program. It was supposed to give you all these opportunities when you got out of prison. So you're going to have all these things out there available for you, so you were sure to succeed. It was a scam, and they stole it from another state. They stole it from Missouri, and I was Missouri or Mississippi. And so they had made booklets up that said MPRI for it was either Missouri or Mississippi prisoner reentry program. We literally even stole their materials because they were already pre-printed with MPRI in it. And they took a guy who was very cool with a staff member who was working programs at that time at the Saginaw Correctional Facility. We'll just call him James. And they put him in charge. They literally called him and said, "We want you to run this program." And he called me over. He said, "I have no idea what I'm doing here. And I was just told we've got like $150 million to spend." And he shows me these booklets from this other state. And he's like, "We're supposed to take this and basically just steal whatever they did." So then the deal was when you got out, have vouchers. $20 voucher for gas to get somebody to give you a ride somewhere, to go to your parole agent or a job interview or whatever. And you could go to Goodwill and get a couple $100 of clothing. You go to Toys R Us, you could get a bicycle, things like that. And then the parole agents were basically stealing the stuff or punishing the prisoners that asked for it. So you would be told these things were available. Then you'd go to your agent and say, "Hey, can I get one of those vouchers for a bicycle?" And they would be like, "Yeah, I think you need a drug test. And that would increase your monitoring. And don't ever ask me for any of that stuff again." Now, this wasn't every agent. I had a friend, Chris, that got out, and his agent gave him everything. He got him a bike. He got him tools for his job. He was great. But a lot of the agents, whether it was pressure from the MDOC or whether it was just pure criminality, started refusing to give the stuff to people or making their lives hell when they ask for it. So a buddy of mine, Jack, gets out, and he's going through 10 kinds of hell to get a $20 gas voucher to pay the people that are driving him everywhere he has to go because he can't drive. And so that program continued, and then it just kind of all filtered away, hundreds of millions of dollars, $150 million to start. And now it's a joke. There's nothing available. So when I leave, there'll be nothing innocent. There'll be nothing waiting for me. If I was a parolee, you know, they would help me get a social security card and a birth certificate and an identification card, and that's really it, you know. And then when they put you up, if they put you up somewhere, in a few instances they put you up somewhere, they put you in the worst parts of cities, right in the drug den. So they'll take a junkie like a guy named Ian that I knew that got out. He was a morphine addict. And they told him, "Here's where you're going, right down into the hood, in what they call a share house, a drug house. And you're going to be living in a room with 4 other guys. It's an old house, converted house. There are 4 or 5 guys in each bedroom. And they're all dope fiends. And when you go into this situation, if you don't use drugs, they will set you up because they're using drugs. So So you come in and go, no, I'm straight, I'm clean, I don't mess around.
Right.
And they're like, oh man, we're not gonna have you in here if you ain't getting high.
Right.
And so you're like, listen, man, I'm an old school con. I don't snitch. I don't care what you guys do, but I'm not doing that. Oh no, you're a rat.
Right.
And they will literally set you up to get you out of there because you're not using drugs. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
And I want everyone out there to know this. The MDOC knows everything that I'm telling you right now. They've been through this a million times. And they're still putting people in the worst parts of the hood in these dumpy, ratty houses. And the minute you get there, there's dealers. Like, hey, man, you want to get high? You want to get high?
But see, again, the problem is, T, is why is Ian going home addicted to morphine?
Well, because he's getting no treatment in here.
Right.
What they do in the MDOC, and like most states, is you don't get any treatment, quotation marks, because there's no real treatment, until right before you're out. So let's say you're a violent sex offender, and you've got some serious proclivities. We had a guy, John Barnowski, used to drive around with a van and kidnap children, rape them, and videotape it, okay? John Barnowski, for example, would get no treatment until he was on his way home. So he has to do 20, 30 years. I believe he's actually dead. But just as an example, John got no treatment for the years that I was at Lapeer with him, where he was a monster, and continued to do those things in prison, attempting to solicit every young boy that came into a unit. And he got no treatment. He was never punished for his solicitation activities with these young, what we call fish prisoners or new kids. He was never punished for those activities. So he was allowed to engage in the same activities in prison pretty much that he was doing in the world, soliciting these boys and trying to trap them and get them in a room or whatever. And he got no programming. He got no infractions. He got no punishment. Now, if he had gotten close to an out date, within a year of his out date, then he had to go to a sexual offender programming class, which is just a joke. And basically, you just have to go in there and go, yeah, I did it, I'm sorry, I'm guilty, I'm a monster, and then they let you go. So what do you think happens to a prisoner who's doing the same thing through his prison bit, or who's gone 20 years without counseling and then gets to his out date and has to go to a class?
Right, and why is he going to go to the class?
Yeah, I get it.
Right, but why is he going to go to the class to begin with? Just like how you just said.
He has to go.
Because he has to go, and he knows he's going home. He knows he's going home, and he's just going to do whatever he's got to do to get home.
Exactly.
So
and they go and they go, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know why.
They play the rules.
Now, now in California, and I just saw a program on this, you go into your programming right away. And you're in there with a large group of guys, and there's no BS. You need to talk about what you did and why you're there. And they have therapists, and they have trained psychologists, and they have all kinds of things available. Some states go all the way to options like chemical castration. But again, Michigan takes in all this money. We had a thing called the Great Lakes Survey, where they looked at the 5 prisons around the Great Lakes, and we were the worst. In waste, in productivity, in programming, in humane living conditions in prison, jobs, education, everything. We were by far the worst and spent the most. And even with that survey that came out, nothing changed. The department just got more and more money and got rid of more and more programming. When Heidi Washington came in, she pretty much destroyed what was left of Hobbycraft, the music program. They've eliminated every sport from hockey to football. I mean, they've taken everything from us. And so now you have a population with nothing to do, basically, but get high or, engage in whatever sexual behaviors they engage in prison or gamble. And so that's what they do. So you have a bunch of guys at card tables gambling, and you have a bunch of dope fiends getting high, and you have people selling everything they own because they're in debt and then locking up for protective custody. You have gangs roaming the yards, and now we have the transgender thing in Michigan has become a huge issue because a lot of guys are using it as a scam. So they'll identify as transgender to get special treatment.
Right.
And this also becomes a protection for them. So that it's not that these are all real transgender individuals. These are many times individuals who see the benefits of pretending that you're transgendered. All they have to do is go over the psych and say, well, I've known for a long time that I was a woman. And they put you through like 6 months of once a week, 7-minute counseling. And then they decide, okay, you're really GID, you have gender identity disorder. And they'll offer you hormones, which a lot of the guys don't take. But it gets them a single cell, and everyone's afraid to touch them or look at them wrong. And if you say boo to them, you wind up in the hole, and your cell gets destroyed, even if they did the bad thing.
See, but let me.
In the meantime, they're doing all the things that everybody else is not supposed to be doing, and they get away with it because the staff are afraid to punish them.
Right. Let me touch on that. Right, because what you just outlined exactly. You articulated it in a perfect fashion, and because we have people out here that say, well, the institutions give programs for help, but yet the inmates are the ones that mess it up, and then they take the programs away. So what you just
Yeah.
described, right, is somebody that's taking advantage of the situation, you know what I mean, or a certain
Right.
program to get
Right.
benefits for.
Right.
But what people don't
Right.
understand is all the other pressures that are applied in prison to make somebody
Oh, sure.
have to do the things that they do. You see what I'm saying?
That's correct.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
how is it not an agenda? How is it not a business, people?
Well, it is an
When hold
agenda.
on, hold
It
on.
is an agenda.
Let me.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm asking the
Yeah.
people, that the listeners, like, how is this not an
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
agenda or a business when you just heard this man articulate it in the fashion that he did, right? Where they take, what else is there for somebody to do? How else are you,
That's right.
Temujin, who is innocent in prison, who's been in prison for 38 fucking years, innocent, how are you supposed to alleviate the stress and pressure of everyday life of prison if they take away the
Right.
weights, if they take away the
Yeah.
education, if they take away all the
Right.
positives for you to alleviate these stresses? What
Yeah.
are you
And
supposed to
let me
do?
give you some other great examples. Just because it's Michigan, we have probably the most repressive mail policies in the state. They look for any reason to reject anything that comes in the mail. So one thing we did, and so for the listeners that know about this, there's a mountain of law that protects a prisoner's right to publications and to mail. And this has been litigated since the 50s in the United States. There are very famous cases like Thornburg versus Abbott, that established Lewis versus Casey, that established these basic rights for prisoners. The MDOC doesn't care about that, because when they lose a lawsuit, the taxpayers pay. The MDOC doesn't lose a dime. So it's gotten to the point now where they look for any reason to reject a book. It used to be for the content of the book. So if a book was incredibly racist, or it was, about planning escapes, there's a famous book called How to Kill People, they would say, okay, you can't have that.
Right.
It's a manual on how to kill people. Now it's the source. So Paula ordered me a book on Judaism. It came from the Jewish Fulfillment Center. It was ordered through Amazon, so it came from two completely legitimate businesses. And they said, oh, well, it came from a second business, and which is a scam, because the Jewish Fulfillment Center is tied to Amazon's Fulfillment Center. The MDOC knows this. It was just to keep us from getting books. They have gone out of their way and actually spent millions of dollars to keep us from getting any kind of publication. So as another example, Paula went online and ordered me a catalog from the Carving Guitar Company. It's a free download. It says right on the screen, you can download this PDF for free. So she included that copy. They came back and said, publication not from authorized vendor. So it's not a publication. It's from the website. Carvin does not put out a physical catalog. I get into a huge fight. They battle me on this for months. I'm suing them over this. They're going to lose, and they will not relent and give me the stupid single pages that Paula copied for me. Meantime, she just sent me a package of like 100 pages of stuff. They didn't say a word about it because it came from her directly. So this is how insane this really is.
Right. But
Now,
they've acknowledged that you're innocent, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the MDOC knows it too. In fact, I just met with Herb Wilson last night. Amazing.
How easy is it to get?
So another thing they've done too, they've also made college impossible. They made a set of rules and regulations to make it impossible for you to go to college while you're in prison. And so when you do somehow find a way to get a college program, they'll then find every reason to deny your textbooks.
Well, this is my question. So how easy is it to get a book from Stephen King or some stupid fictional author that writes fictional books?
So if it's garbage, they have a vendor called Edward Hamilton, and it's a company that buys books in bulk.
Right.
So they have a run of a book. Let's say they might have 1,000 copies of Stephen King's The Shining, and you can buy that from Edward Hamilton. The problem is that there are literally billions of publications Edward Hamilton doesn't have, and they're a great company. They have good prices, and I like the company. But in fact, I have Paula using them in the world now. But as far as the MDOC goes, it's another one of their scams. When you go back and say, well, I want this book, and it's not available from anywhere except this little bookstore in California, the law says they're supposed to get the book, look at it, make sure the content's okay, make sure there's no drugs or whatever, and it hasn't been tampered with, and then give you the book. They don't do that. I've probably had 100 books rejected in the last 5 years, every single one from a legitimate business, and never once for the content of the book. So
it doesn't matter if it's an educational book or not. It's just they're not letting any books in.
It's banning books. It's banning books, exactly.
Okay.
It's also banning college. They've made college impossible. So you go to get your college textbook from the college bookstore, and they won't let them in because it's not an approved vendor. It's the University of Michigan, or my degrees from the University of Georgia, for example, through PCDI, my legal degree, one of them. And I now can no longer use the University of Georgia, and I can no longer use their bookstore because it's not an approved vendor. But they won't approve them as a vendor. So again, it's this game they play. You can't get any religious materials anymore because they haven't made all these religious companies vendors. So there's a Buddhist company, a very famous one called Karma Triana Dharma Chakra. They've been very good to prisoner Buddhists. They give them thousands of publications over the years. They were once an approved religious vendor, but they're not an approved publisher, even though they publish. The MDOC won't let the materials in. But we have a policy that says you can get things directly from the publisher. They'll come back and say it's not a publisher. They fought me for a year to keep me from getting Kevin Trudeau's Natural Cures book. They fought me for a year. They spent tens of thousands of dollars fighting me. And I found 5 prisoners that had the exact same book already. And I had to finally get another hearing and take that book to that hearing and say, Mr. Pacheco just got this book. In fact, he shared it with me for them to admit what they were doing. It's just what they do. It's part of the game. It's not just because it's me. It's part of this game. They have no way to justify their job. Our mailroom does not find drugs in the mail. It's these 2 old women. I'm here at this facility in Macomb. And they just spend their days writing rejection. They don't do anything else. They just write rejection.
They open people's mail. They read it. They do all kinds of stuff. They do, they just sit in there and amuse their time,
They also borrow some writing grievances, and they find all these cute reasons to do it. So this is on JPay. I sued, as a lot of you know, I sued JPay successfully. I won a while ago and settled. And preparing another case against JPay right now, so I wrote 4 grievances against them, and now they've suddenly decided I can't grieve JPay. And I'm like, well, you let me grieve them before, and I sued them and I won. Yeah, you can't grieve them anymore. Now it's a lack of jurisdiction. It's just a game. And again, this is going to lead to millions in litigation, and they don't care. So now we're doing a class action against the MDOC about JPay, and the taxpayers should be out there furious knowing what's going on in here because they're going to lose those millions of dollars that they poured out of their pockets into the state's coffers that were supposed to go for making prisoners better people.
And I want to go after JPay. I'm going to start researching JPay and the other one. What's the other one? Securus?
Securus?
Yeah,
so okay, here's how it works. Tom Gores, who's from Flint, in fact, his parents owned a small grocery store when I lived there. He is now the owner of Detroit Pistons. I've personally written him letters he's refused to answer. He got blasted on social media because he's supposed to be this wokeitarian, and supposed to stand for criminal justice, and yet he literally bought this massive prison company that's been screwing inmates over for years. JPay's notorious. And so a great article came out a little while ago that Dave Sanders from Proven Innocent sent me showing that, Tom has been catching hell about this company. And as late as 2017, 2018, he was promising he was going to fix it. I'm going to make it a way better experience. JPay are monsters. They steal your money. They sell you defective content. They refuse to answer your concerns. They sell defective devices. They steal your mail. They wipe out your photos. They steal your prepaid stamps. They've literally stolen over 1,000 stamps from me, without exaggeration, with over 1,000 stamps. And they just stole about 400 stamps from me in the last month and a half.
Plus all the information. I can't even imagine all the personal information they probably sell to so many third parties,
Sure. Yeah, they have all of our letters. And our legal mail is not considered confidential on JPay, which we're also going to be litigating very soon. But they tell you we're going to read your legal mail, so they read all. I'm sure they data mine and data harvest all day long. Securus is a multi-billion-dollar company. They've got ties to other companies. Goris knows better, but for him it's about the profits. This thing is breaking companies, destroying them, taking people's pensions, and making an enormous profit. It's what he does. And he just happens to also own the Pistons. But, I say this because he publicly promised to fix this stuff. And then I wrote him and
well, that's why the Pistons can't win, partner.
Well, bad karma. Bad juju. Absolutely, there's no question. Yeah, he's brought a lot of shame to that team and a lot of shame to this state. And he's got the money to make things a lot better. And I really don't understand anybody in power saying they believe in something and not doing that thing. I mean, how much money do you need? How much money does Bill Gates need? Do you really need $70, $80 billion just so you can say I've got 84 billion instead of 83 billion that I had last year. I mean, imagine what you can do with that kind of money. So you come out and you say you believe in all these causes, and yeah, great, he donates millions or whatever. But who needs $84 billion or $60 billion?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I understand that's not all just cash in the bank account.
Well, look at Van Jones.
Economics also.
Look at Van Jones. Look at Van Jones sitting up here talking about all of this stuff about wrongful convictions and all of this. He just got $100 million. They threw $100 million at him. They threw KK at him, and you don't hear from him no more.
Yeah, exactly. So this just goes on and on and on, you know. And Paris Hilton today is actually talking about abuse of children in these children's facilities today. I hope she's sincere. You recall when she went through that mess years ago, she came out of jail and said she was going to start fighting for civil rights and justice causes and jail abuses, and we never heard another word.
Yeah.
6, 7, 8 years since she said that and went through that stuff. And
Martha Stewart, all of them.
Just before I came up, I saw her today, but she's got the Hilton fortune behind her. So again, look what she could do. And what the people need to realize, and I always say this, and that rally showed, is you can get people together, you can unite under a bunch of banners, and you can make some changes, but it's a continuous process. You can't just do it once. We have a bad habit, I'm sure you know this in this nation, of obsessing over something and then literally never talking about it again.
Well, see, that's why I'm trying to unite America, right? Because this is what I said in Michigan when I went. And that's what I told the people. Listen, everybody that's here is somebody that's representing somebody in prison. It's like going to church and preaching to the choir. All you beautiful people are out here in the rain. You know what I mean? It was raining. It was monsooning. And I'm watching Paula and Jennifer and all these ladies, carry all of this stuff from the truck, setting everything up. I'm watching, but it's just everybody. And I'm taking all of this stuff in. And Michigan, your governor wasn't even there. You know what I mean? The representatives wasn't even there.
No, she won't even talk about criminal justice issues.
There was only 1,000 people there. But see, this is my point, T. Right. We need to build, we the people, America, man, we need to build a strong army of 50, 60,000 people that when an organization says we have a rally going on at the governor's mansion, that we have 50,000 people on that lawn versus 800 people. Because when you have 50,000 on that lawn, I guarantee the governor's going to be there. I guarantee national news is going to be there.
We don't do that. What we do is we do like one event. Like I'll give you a great example. You never hear a word about Black Lives Matter anymore. Nobody even talks about them. You know, I see like a little snippet on the news, and that's it. 2 years ago, it was on everybody's lips. Not a word. George Floyd is occasionally referenced now. You know, I heard him mentioned in a congressional hearing on C-SPAN for like 30 seconds, and we've forgotten about that. And now we're on to the new thing, and that's the problem. We have this insanely short attention span, and we will obsess over an issue, and then we will literally forget about it and go on to the next thing.
Well, here again in Michigan, before the wrongful conviction thing started, they get up there as George Floyd's birthday, and they get up there, and I'm talking about, dog, they're up there with all the passion in the world. This is where all the senators and representatives are. They're not at the wrongful conviction. They all left. But they're all up there to say all of these names, right? I got it on recording. It's on YouTube. So they're up there and they're saying all of these names and they're yelling it out. Say their name. And then they say, but at the end I ask, who killed these people? Why are these people not here anymore? And then you'll hear a whisper, oh, it was the police. Okay, well, say that then. Say why these people aren't here. Don't sit up here and call their names like you care. Sit up here and say why they're not here. You know what I mean? Come on, man.
And then not mention the 43 kids that just died in Chicago, which is insane. That children are getting shot every day in this country. I learned an important lesson as I aged. When I was young, we didn't have video games. So when video games came out, they were very harmless. It was things like Pong. Music had pretty dull lyrics. There was a little sexy stuff in the 60s and 70s, but none of the really graphic stuff that came out later on. As the graphic music came out and the graphic video games came out, there was backlash, and you started hearing, studies indicate that video games don't affect the way people think, or song lyrics don't affect anything. That was all BS. That was all BS. Those so-called studies were BS. Now we know video games absolutely affect people, and all these school shooter kids are all telling us, yeah, I play Call of Duty all day long and I dream about killing people. So it's like that with everything. We're becoming worse and worse and worse as a society. We're becoming more selfish, more destructive, more divided, more hateful, and it allows the people in power to just dance us around like puppets on strings.
That's right.
And the division in this country, and I talk about this all the time, is so insane right now that you got people that want to kill each other over this stupid vaccine. Now, I just discussed this with a friend yesterday who came to visit. I have no problem with anybody that's taking the vaccine. I would never put down somebody or say you're stupid or you're dumb. I told my friend who's elderly, I absolutely think you should take it, your wife should take it. But I had COVID, and I was tested by the Michigan National Guard, and I have the antibodies. And then because I have immune disease, I get regular antibody panels. I just had one done again, and I'm still chock full of antibodies. Plus, I'm on chemo. So I have the antibodies, I just had a new confirmation test, and on top of that, I'm on chemo, and I've had COVID. I am not a proper candidate for the vaccine, between the immune disease, the chemo, and the fact that I had the disease. Why somebody would sit there and say I'm a horrible human being who's killing people, when that is not the science, nor is there any indication of that. Or to imply that I'm killing vaccinated people, which everybody up to our president has been doing. Is literally leading this nation to the edge of a civil war. Just today, I think it was, well, I know there are thousands of General Electric employees walked out because of these vaccine mandates. And to this day, no one's talking about the natural immunity issue, even though they know at least 100 million Americans have had COVID and survived and now have natural immunity. Now, for all the listeners, I don't care what you heard on YouTube, I don't care what you heard on Twitter, here's what a vaccine is. It's the thing that makes you sick in an inert form or a piece of the thing. So in the case of the present vaccine, they use part of the viral shell, and so your body sees that thing and becomes responsive when it sees that thing, and that's what the antibody response is. But all a vaccine is some stabilizing chemicals. They used to use thimerosal mercury, which is very poisonous. Now they use polypropylene glycol, which is also very poisonous. But regardless, it's that mixed with the thing that will make you sick in a dead form. So it's not a live virus. So when you get the polio vaccine, there's actually dead polio in that vaccine. And we have the sugar cube and we have the shot. We have the Salk and Sabin vaccines. Now, just so everyone understands, and any doctor will tell you this, a vaccine is not a drug. It's not an antibiotic. It's not a blood pressure lowering medication. It does not make anything happen other than it exposes your body to this thing that's not supposed to be there. And the body makes an antibody response to it. That's what happens when you have COVID. Whether you have the live virus or the dead virus, all it does is makes an immune response. Hopefully you survive. The dead virus generally doesn't kill you. The live virus in a lot of diseases like the hantavirus can absolutely kill you. The COVID death rate based on infections is incredibly small, but there are people that have died, and that's a terrible thing. But just so everyone understands, so we can all stop fighting. People who have the antibodies are no different than people that have taken the vaccine. They're not bad human beings, and they don't want you dead, and they're not killing anybody. And again, here's the science for everyone. People who have natural immunity, and this is every single study going back to the 40s, have stronger immunity than those who get it from a vaccine. If you survive polio, your anti-polio viral count, antibody count, will be much, much, much higher than those who simply took the polio vaccine. And this is how we eradicated polio. People survived smallpox, and they survived mumps and measles and rubella and pertussis or whooping cough and a variety of other diseases, diphtheria, and we don't see people dying of those things anymore thanks to vaccines. So I am not an anti-vaccine person. Everyone needs to know this before the hate mail starts. And I'm not saying don't take a vaccine because you're going to die and it's part of a giant government conspiracy. The problem is the government is using the vaccine as a dividing tool, and we have a president who has no idea what he's talking about, coming out and literally just today saying
about anything.
Oh, you're killing people. You're kidding. Of course, the man's a train wreck. That's all. He's like
train wreck.
He's a train wreck. Yeah. But and this is not a pro-Trump. This is not a pro-Trump rant. Just so everyone knows.
There's nothing to do with Trump.
I love Tulsi Gabbard. I wanted her in office.
Has nothing to do with Trump.
And no, she's a Democrat. I love Tulsi Gabbard. I think she would have been an amazing president. So, minority, female, fine, I don't care. I think she would have been the best out of the crop that was available.
But see, again, that's the manipulative thing, though. That's the manipulative thing, is that just because I speak out against Biden, right?
Right.
I'm automatically a Trumper.
Which is insane.
It's insane,
they're
man.
Screaming everybody who doesn't get the vaccine is a Trumper, and he was the first one to take the damn vaccine, and then his whole administration got vaccinated, and his wife got vaccinated, and his kids got vaccinated. Every time I turn around, there's somebody on CNN saying Trump did this. Trump was the guy who touted the vaccine and told us all what a great guy he was for giving us the vaccine. He never hinted that anybody shouldn't take the vaccine. Now CNN's like, if you don't take the vaccine, you love Donald Trump and you hate America. No, I don't want to die from a vaccine reaction. Secondly, I've had life-threatening reactions from prescription medications in the past. I'm definitely allergic to a variety of things that are well documented in my medical file.
Well, for
I'm on a special medical diet. There's things I can't eat. So I'm in that class of people who absolutely should not take that vaccine.
For me, I don't trust you, Joe. Joe, I don't trust you and your whole organization, Joe.
Nobody does. The man lied. He just told
Please.
an Amtrak train lie again yesterday, and that was proven to be a lie the last time he told that crazy story. The man is a mess. And guess what? You know, Trump had his flaws too. This is not a Trump rant. And Biden's the president of the United States, and I'm not saying we need to insurrect and tear down the government. But everybody knows this nation cannot stand 4 years of Joe Biden. And I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what the people in power are going to do. I promise you they're going to do something. It's not going to be anybody coming from Tupelo, Missouri with a gun to shoot the president of the United States. That's a bunch of bullshit. I absolutely believe they will make an effort to get him out of that office because he's a mess. But right now he can be managed and he can be controlled. But he keeps saying bizarre things, and medically we all know he's getting much, much worse. And for anybody that yells at me, I worked in a convalescent center. I saw senile dementia back when they just called it senility before we knew what Alzheimer's was. The man has Alzheimer's, and he's progressing. And we saw it in Ronald Reagan. We know what happened to Reagan at the end. We're seeing it now with Joe Biden. Reagan was a Republican. Biden's a Democrat. This has nothing to do with politics. But see, there's the thing. We need, as a nation, to simply agree there is a problem and fix the problem. Even the problem with the ports is somehow turned into a Democrat-Republican issue. This is insane. It's because the ports don't run 24 hours a day. You go over to Denmark, the ports open 24 hours a day. You go to Florida, the ports are open 24 hours a day. The unions in California won't allow it. Why? There's a lot of people that want a third shift job. I love working third shift. So again, these are all fixable problems. They should not be about division.
You know, let me explain to the people. Let me explain something because I don't think the people are really cognizant to the stresses that we go through. You know, you have a man, again, 38 years in prison, innocent, who is fighting every day to try to get the attention of the courts in some way or fashion just to hear him out. And you have these political figures that are arguing over the stupidest of things, that close the courts down, they tie the courts up, they put all of these stupid bills in there that pushes, of course, anything to do with prison is always the last thing to be heard. So when you're having all of this stupid arguing, this division, you know what I mean, between Democrats and Republicans that backs the courts up for 6 months, 8 months, a year, the stress and frustration on us inmates inside is just, it's enough to just want to rip your throat out. You know, it's.
Well, you know, Thomas, you know this, having been in prison. One of the things that we do in this country, and again, I know this is going to be a dividing talking point for many, is we treat Americans much, much worse than we treat people who are not from this country. And I have a great example for that. In my diet lawsuit, which is still pending right now here in Michigan, it's a class action lawsuit. It's in the U.S. District Court. I went and I got the Bureau of Prisons diet, but I went and got the diet that the Taliban receives in the Guantanamo Bay facility in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. And I got this from the Department of Defense. So the diet is almost identical to the diet served in the federal prisons. And when you look on their website, there used to be a journal on there explaining, when you look at this diet, we don't want you to think we're pampering these terrorists. And he says, this is a diet that all the organizations from the USDA to the U.S. government to the American Medical Association have determined is the appropriate diet for human health. So they get chicken breast and turkey breast, and they get lemons and limes, and they get berries and melons, and there's a medical reason for all of that. Berries have zeaxanthin and astaxanthin and lutein and things you need for your vision, polyphenols. And melon has polyphenols and antioxidants. And lemons and limes and oranges have large amounts of vitamin C and what are called limonene, flavonoids. So the point is, they're saying we're giving these guys this diet because this is a diet you're supposed to have, and it's the humane thing to do. And yet we don't do that in most American prisons. So we're telling the world these guys are so horrible and so awful, and they want to kill us all, and they hate America, but we're feeding them this incredible diet. They have video games. They have soccer fields. They have amazing libraries. They have single cells, very large cells, by the way. They get top-flight medical care. They get surgeries for a little twinge in their shoulder. They get surgery right away, and they get phenomenal surgeons. As those guys came out, the ones that were being honest, said, okay, it sucked being in prison, and of course, a lot of them were never even charged with a crime, which is a terrible way to do business. But as far as how they were treated, and I don't mean those photos of those Iraqi prisoners that were being tortured by the military. I'm talking about at Guantanamo Bay. You can see what's going on. There's video of it. Those guys had everything you could possibly want in a prison to be a better person. Education, classes, programming, medical care, excellent food, very nice cell. They were given all their religious supplies. They're given rugs and kufi caps and traditional clothing and sandals, and they get religious oil. They get attar, the toothpick if they use that, the miswak, and so on. Attar is oil, miswak is a toothpick. They get all the things. So in Michigan, here in a Michigan prison, $2.6 billion, 40,000 prisoners, we get none of that. We have not seen an orange in the MDOC in probably 5 years.
What?
We haven't seen a lemon or a lime.
You hold on. T. You have not had one orange in 5 years.
No, let me tell you what we haven't had since 2009 as an example. We haven't had any sulfur-containing vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. We haven't had tomatoes. We haven't had an apricot. We haven't had an orange. We haven't had a lemon or a lime. We used to get grapefruit for breakfast. We haven't had an egg served to us since, I want to say, 2009 or 2010 as an actual egg. Like, here's an egg. It's been that long. It's not exaggeration.
Well, where are you getting your nutrients? Where's the nutrients coming from?
We're not. That's the whole problem. We're not. So these guys are sick as dogs. When you go to, there's nobody exercising hardly anymore because they're sick and they're weak. This affects your mental function. So then guess what? They put them on psychotropic meds. Meanwhile, healthcare is asking for more and more money because we have increases in cancer and diabetes and obesity and high blood pressure. And again, Director Heidi Washington will not fix any of this, even with my very expensive lawsuit pending in front of a very good judge, Gershwin Drain. He's considered a constitutional scholar. We have one of the best experts in the nation, Patricia Adams, that said this is not a diet fit for animals. And regardless, $2.6 billion, like they were getting before, and they just took all the food.
Okay, all right, okay, T. Hold on, because this is kind of unbelievable, right? So what is your what do you eat for breakfast each day?
So here's an example of an MDOC diet. You get a teeny tiny little box of orange juice. You get grits, and you might get white toast with butter, and you get a little tiny box of milk, and there's your entire breakfast. Lunch will be a processed piece of bologna. We only get processed meat except for once a week when we receive a small, it's supposed to be a chicken leg, but it's like a little joke. It's about the size of a sparrow. That's the only unprocessed meat we get. So where the U.S. government says eating processed meat causes cancer, and where the USDA just said a few years ago you should never eat processed meat more than twice a week, like a hot dog, we get only processed meat every time we get meat. We only get processed meat. So if the government's saying don't do this, it causes cancer, then why did you take away our chicken breast and our fresh fish? We only get a processed fish patty. We only get a processed chicken patty. We only get fake cheese, and so on and so on. Why is that? Why are they doing this? They feed us tons of gluten with all the evidence on gluten. They give us TVP, which is textured vegetable protein, which besides like chewing rubber and tasting horrible, is incredibly bad for you. And they load us up on that. So if you don't want the piece of processed meat, you can have the processed textured vegetable protein. And that's what they do. So now you have a bunch of sick prisoners, and those guys are going on the streets. They've been using drugs. They're on psych meds. They're sick, and they've gotten no health care for 20 years. How do you think they fare out there? They don't. They commit more crimes, and they come right back. We have a parole board that only lets the worst of the worst go, and we have really good guys that have never been in trouble once in 30 years, and they get flopped. Just so all the listeners know, I want everyone to understand, I was determined to be actually innocent of this crime. I'm on my way home, and the Michigan Parole Board just gave me a 5-year denial. It's called a passover. I have an excellent institutional record. I have the lowest security rating that you can have, which is a minus 33. I haven't had a ticket in I don't know how many years. And even then, it was just a petty infraction. And yet the Michigan Parole Board just gave me a 5-year denial. So if we didn't have a CIU, I would be late into my 40 years for a crime I didn't commit. Because our parole board has literally said, quote, we don't care if you're innocent. We don't do innocence.
Right. They just make determining factors.
A recording of them saying that.
Yeah.
I'll give you a copy for your show. Paul has actually recorded them saying, yeah, we're not going to consider innocence. So here's a parole board deciding you should go home and telling you you can only go home if you're guilty. If you're innocent, we will make you do every single day of your prison bit. And if you're a lifer and you're innocent, we will make you die in prison because we don't recognize innocence. Well, then they're supposed to recognize accomplishments. Well, I've got 11 degrees. I can't tell you the number of people that I've helped, the amount of support that I've got, my excellent institutional record. I've never been accused of any of the bad stuff, stabbings and rapes and drugs and any of that, not once in 35 years. And so that alone should be grounds to warrant a parole, not in Michigan.
What? You mean you've been in there 38 years and no rapes, no stabbings, none of that?
No, haven't got around to
Come
any
on,
of that
but
yet.
that's not what they say on the other shows,
years.
man. That's not what they say on the other shows, man.
Well, fortunately, I have a well-documented record, and trust me, the people that hate me, if I had done any of those things, we would never hear the end of it. It would be like, oh my God, he did this and that. They were still listening. This is how desperate they were to find something to use against me. I had a public hearing in 2010, based solely on the fact that I was innocent and pressured from the media. And it was a sham. The entire thing was a sham. The Attorney General at that time was a monster. And we had the worst parole board in Michigan's history, headed by Barbara Sampson, who was a monster. The whole thing was staged in cahoots with St. Clair County and the Attorney General's office at that time, and a guy named Scott Rothermel. And instead of being a public hearing where people come in and comment on the case and questions are asked, we look at all my accomplishments, it was 2 13-hour sessions of beating me up while I was surrounded by SWAT in body armor. It was insane. It'd never been done in Michigan history. Now, bear in mind, I was a minimum security prisoner with 0 security points, and I had 25 armed SWAT guys with steel face masks, bear mace, speed holsters, and M4 automatic assault rifles bolted to their chest on quick-release harnesses. And just so everyone knows, this is a matter of record. I'm not making this up. They spent the entire hearing trying to find things to beat me up for. So the only ticket they could look at was a 1996 fight where I was attacked by a Nazi, Ryan Baldwin. It was such a petty offense, they literally let me go after a couple of days. They called me in, like, we know what happened. You can hear the knife clang on the floor in the video, and we're going to let you go. And they put me right back on the yard. So they thought, the MDOC thought nothing of the incident. That was all the parole board had. So then they spent months going through my institutional file trying to find anything to say something bad about me. Here's what they were able to find. Ready? Jennifer Granholm was the governor at that time, and she'd only commuted one sentence for a woman named Lynn Hargrave Thomas. And people were saying, she's only done one case, and it was a woman. It looks like she doesn't care about these innocent men in here. So I wrote her a very nice letter. I still have a copy if anybody wants to see it. And I said, we're really looking forward to having you look at this, and I hope you'll give the case serious consideration. And I said a lot of people have expressed concern that you've only done this one commutation for Ms. Thomas. And which, by the way, was a very, very messed up case in a lot of ways. And now I'm a misogynist. Now, bear in mind, in the letter, I'm not saying you did this, governor, and you're a bad person, or women this, women that. It was nothing like that in the letter. They spent, about 4 hours trying to convince everybody that I was a misogynist. And I had the letter right there, and I said, where's the part where I say something bad about women? And there's not a word. But I'm a misogynist. And I said, this is what you guys have got. At that time, 28 years in prison, 29 years. I said, this is what you've got. This is all you've got, is this right here. And they were like, oh, no, we've got more. We've got more. So this is the next thing. Ready? I was a Buddhist at the time, and I was teaching students, and I put a copy of the Buddhist Bible, known as the Dhammapada, in the prison of Israel. I donated a copy. In the introduction of the Dhammapada, for anybody that knows about Buddha, was an Aryan of the Kshatriya tribe. So his family lineage was The Kshatriya. The Kshatriya were an ancient Indo-Aryan family. Now, that word does not mean Hitler and Nazis. It's actually a word that Hitler stole. It's not a German word. It's a word from India. The Indo-Aryan tribes were a people that about 6,000 years ago conquered northern India and subjugated the people there and became the ruling class. It has nothing to do with white people or Nazis. It's Indo-Aryan. Anyways, a black warden thought it was something racist, not knowing a thing about Buddhism. He literally wrote a memo that said, Prisoner Kensu put a book in the visitor room called the Dhammapada, which mentions Aryans. Seriously.
Yeah.
Now, so everyone knows, this is the official Dhammapada of Buddhism. This is not something I put together. It's a great big volume. And it was provided for us by Karma Triana Dharma Chakra, the same company I mentioned, a great company, of a bunch of Asian monks, by the way, but now apparently they're Nazis. So I'm sitting there in front of this parole board with 100 people in this room and bodyguards everywhere. I said, wait a minute, are you guys implying that Buddhism is a racist religion? And I had to give a lesson to the whole parole board about the history of Buddhism and the fact that Buddha was darker than anybody in that room except for Reverend Atterbury and Barbara Sampson. I said he was an Indian. He was a Hindu. He was a dark-skinned Hindu. He's not a white person. And there's nothing racism. There's nothing racism in Buddhists. It's the most accepting faith on the planet. And I don't want to offend any faith, but their belief is that there's not even an issue of race in Buddhism. So the point was, this is how far they went to make me look bad. And fortunately, Reverend Atterbury was honest enough to say, I have a degree in religious studies, which I also have. And he said, Buddhism's not racist. And I know what that word is, and that has nothing to do with white people. And you can see how crestfallen the parole board was, and the Attorney General, Scott Rothermel, was, because they thought they just had me. Now I'm a prison Nazi. So this is how insane this process is.
I've never even heard that before. I've never heard in my life Buddhism and racism in the same sentence.
Yeah, and I have again, if anybody wants, I have the transcript of the hearing, and it was witnessed by 100 people, including Mr. Sanders, who I believe you communicated with Mr. Sanders before, Dave, and he sat there and watched it, along with lawyers from the University of Michigan watched this, and everybody was just like, the ACLU was there, and everybody said, this is disgusting. This is freaking disgusting. All you're doing is trying to find some way to make this guy look bad, because you will not, and they refused these 2 long hearings to discuss the case. And the parole board and the Attorney General, the Assistant Attorney General, Scott Rothermel, refused to ask one single question of St. Clair County or of the people that accused me of this crime, who were there. Crystal Merrill and Scott Macklum's parents, Gary and Pat, were there at the hearing. And they didn't ask them one question.
Wow.
So we produced a mountain of evidence and experts and polygraphs and television shows, and I've got a U.S. attorney sitting there saying I'm completely innocent, and I've got judges and law enforcement from state and federal agencies all saying I'm innocent. And here's this guy, Scott Rothermel, saying these horrible things about me, lying about the case, lying about what happened in the appeals, lying about the court's ruling, lying about issues that I raised, and beating me up. And the whole purpose of the hearing was simply, can he go home? What's he done with his prison bid? They didn't want to hear about the college. We have all that. We have all your stuff. Yeah, you got a lot of college. No, the premise of the hearing was supposed to be all the things that I had done and why I should be allowed to go. Now, so everyone knows, now, and I'll stop talking about this, the hearing began with Barbara Sampson saying, this hearing is being conducted, and this is a rare and unique occasion, because of the overwhelming evidence of your actual innocence. So the first time the parole board ever admitted I was completely innocent, and said that's why they were conducting the hearing. And then they spent 2 13-hour sessions beating the living crap out of me over, they did one, and they brought me back 2 weeks later. And, when I came back, I was able to bring documents and show all the things people had lied about. The parole board didn't ask a single person that lied about anything. They just brought in people to say, people who didn't even know me. Some crazy woman came in and said, I was at the trial. I sat next to Crystal the entire time, and I saw his eyes, and they were evil. You've all seen photos of me, not evil. But regardless, the woman was lying. Okay, I was in that courtroom. She was not sitting next to Crystal Merrill the entire time. This woman lied.
How did it feel, dog, to see Crystal?
Well, everybody knows Crystal was either directly involved or indirectly involved in the murder. And we just discussed this with one of our experts yesterday. Crystal Merrill, as everyone now knows who knows the case, lied about where she was the morning of the murder. She claimed that a woman named Lynn Hollingsworth came in to fill in for her at work when she found out Scott was dead. That's a lie. Crystal didn't get to work till long after Scott was dead. Scott was killed about 40 minutes from where she worked at State Farm Insurance Agency in Croswell. By the way, she worked for Scott's father, Gary Macklin, who owned the insurance agency and was also the Croswell mayor. And she claimed she was at work at 9 o'clock that morning, which is when Scott was killed. That was a lie. We found out early on she got to work after 10. She lied under oath and claimed that she was there at work until they called her to tell her something had happened to Scott, and that Lynn came in and filled in for her. We just recorded Lynn 6 months ago, 35 years later, saying again, that's a lie. I did not go in and fill in for Crystal. So where was Crystal that morning? When Scott was killed, and there's no question about this, there's a woman standing right by him. And again, we just covered this with the investigator yesterday. And it's been covered by a lot of shows, including the Generation Y podcast that was just done about this case. There was a woman standing right next to Scott in broad daylight, probably 10 feet away, while he was shot at close range with a 12-gauge shotgun. Now, think about that, everybody. If you've ever heard a 12-gauge, you know how loud it is. It's like a cannon. When it's 10 feet away from you, your ears are ringing for the next 2 hours. And hunters will tell you that's why they wear earplugs or muffs. So anyways, this woman then who's right next to Scott, and nobody saw Scott being shot. And nobody saw a car tear out of the spot next to Scott. And it was 20 below that morning, and no car came by with an open window and no car doors slammed. Robert Cleveland's entire story was BS. He just made that up. He claimed that I was sitting next to Scott waiting for him to come out to his car, and I shot him. Scott was seen by the witnesses running from the student center to his car, and he was shot by the front of his car. He never even got into his car door when he was shot. He wasn't shot by somebody sitting next to him. He was running from somebody. Here's this female standing next to a red car, and she's got a red coat on, and there's a bang, and the witnesses say she appeared to shrug her shoulders, which I think was her throwing the gun into the car. And then she gets in the car and drives off. The police never look for her, and this woman never comes forward. Now, if she belonged at that college for any reason, or she saw the papers, or she was a teacher, or she was a student, she knew that a murder had just happened in that parking lot, and she was right there when it happened.
Right. I mean, how often do murders happen in this area right here?
Oh, very few, very few.
So a murder,
the chief homicide detective down there, and I think he did like 5 or 6 cases over a.
So that's the point. The point is a murder happening of that magnitude in the parking lot of that morning. Yeah. Everybody is going to know.
Absolutely. Rennie Goldbane was just this loser who wanted to be the star witness in this case. He couldn't wait to run to the police. Richard Kruger, another guy who saw nothing but he kept trying to insert himself into the case, he couldn't wait to run to the police and be a witness. This woman never came forward. And here's the thing, everybody. Though very credible witnesses saw her in the lot, there's no question she was there, the police never even tried to find her. They didn't question a single college student. They didn't go to an auditorium and put on a public questionnaire. They didn't send memos to the college, talk to the students. They did nothing. They did no investigation. They did a Frederick Freeman investigation, which you all know is my birth name. So they did nothing to look into Scott. It was us who found all of Scott's drugs and drug dealer friends and shady friends, and it was us who found the places he was hanging out in with Crystal when he was buying drugs, and we found people that sold him drugs and people that did drugs with him and that did drugs or watched Crystal do drugs or smoke weed or, apparently he was into marijuana oil, which we used to call hash oil in the old days. He was buying that. And, everyone also knows I never used drugs because I was a health nut, and I still am now. And if you do, God bless you, do your thing. But I don't. And so the point is that besides Crystal lying about being at work and the red car, the woman in the red coat getting into the red car and the shrugging of the shoulders, which I think was putting something in the car, Crystal had a red Camaro Berlinetta at that time. It was around an 85 or an 86. It was a new car. It wasn't even paid off. It was mint condition, red with a black interior, and the mag rims. She sold that car after Scott's murder and bought a blue Dodge Arrow. And we have the sale, we have the registration, we have the plate numbers. She loved that Camaro. That Camaro was her frickin' world. She flipped out the first time she let me drive it because it was her baby. Scott gets killed, she sells the car. Her keys were in Scott's glove box. So when they inventoried Scott's vehicle that morning, there's this big key ring in there. And they couldn't figure out whose it was, and they went back to Scott's parents, and they recognized it. Oh, that's Crystal's. And on it are all of her most important keys, including the keys for Grove Video, the store she worked at, not far from where Scott was killed. How did her keys get into Scott's glove box the morning that he was murdered in his locked car when she was questioned about it, she literally said, "Oh, I don't know how those got there," and then she changed and said, "Oh, they were stolen. They were stolen." So you didn't report your keys being stolen. Remember, she's being stalked by a ninja, and there's a professional assassin coming to get her, and she sees shadows in the dark.
Right.
But she didn't tell the police, "Hey, all my keys, including all the keys of the house I live in with my parents, and my car, and our barn, and our tractors, and my parents' vehicles, and my sister's vehicles, and my safe deposit box, and my workplace, all those keys were on a big bundle, and they're missing." They didn't change any locks. They didn't report anything to the police. They just gave the keys back to her later on, after Scott's murder. So, to this day, she's refused to explain any of this, but we have her on oath lying and saying, "Oh, yeah, they were stolen." From where? No explanation. So, she didn't lose them. They were in his glove box. They were found in his glove box the morning that he was killed. I think the crystal was in Scott's car. And we don't know this, but I think Crystal was in Scott's car at some point. I think they had an argument or a fight. I think she threw the keys in the glove box. She had one of those big key rings full of stuff. So she tossed it in the glove box. She got out of the vehicle angry. She came back later on and she shot him. That's what I believe. That or somebody else was involved and Crystal knows everything about it. But no matter what, Crystal has not explained anything about Scott, his drug use, or the people that were hunting Scott down. And of course, anybody knows this case knows there were men coming into Scott's workplace and threatening him on multiple occasions before he died, and the police confirmed it wasn't me, so Robert Cleveland tried to hide that.
Sure, I mean, being an old dope boy. I mean, Scott probably he was an addict. He probably owed a lot of money. He probably brought Crystal in. He brought Crystal in on it. You know what I mean? And she probably set him up. You know what I mean? She probably, that morning, she could have just said, "You know what? F this dude." You know what I mean? And called the killer and said, "Listen, he's at this park. He's going to be here this day, whatever." Set the dude up to be killed.
Yeah, she's nuts. But we also know there had to have been multiple people involved, because if the witnesses are correct, he was running from somebody and trying to get to his car and get away.
Yeah.
And then there's this girl next to the car. Now, is the girl the shooter or the lookout? I don't know. Was somebody else there? Did this guy run up and shoot Scott and get in the car with her? I don't know. The witnesses that saw her had a partially obstructed view and said she appeared to shrug her shoulders. They couldn't see what she did below that. And then she gets in this red car and she drives off in the other direction away from Scott and away from their phony suspect they made up later on. She drives in a completely different direction. She's on the other side of Scott, not the same side.
Yeah.
And she drives away off towards the fire department.
Hey, T.
So the point is, the witnesses are unimpeachable. These are just college people. They don't know me from Adam. They have no reason to lie. And they said, three of them, Scott would seem to be running. And we know, of course, his keys were in his car door, and he was laying by the front wheel well of his vehicle. So he was shot trying to get into his car. So he obviously was not shot by me, sitting there next to him waiting for him, because he fell at the front wheel well of his car while he was frantically trying to get in his car door. And he had set his things on the hood while he was trying to open the door. So Robert Cleveland knew he was lying from the very beginning when he made this crazy story up. And my drug-addicted, cocaine, whacked-out alcoholic lawyer wasn't going to take this apart. But Scott's entrance wound was far below and moving in a sharp upward angle than it could have come from the window of a car door. And we actually took multiple vehicles there and we measured the whole thing out. The round was entering the intestinal tract in the lower left side of his back, moved at an upward angle, and was actually exiting under his armpit. The round moved so sharply upwards it cut through his spleen, his diaphragm, his lungs, and his heart as the round moved upwards. And the pellets were under his armpit, almost ready to exit the body. He was not shot by anybody pointing a gun out of a car door, and Cleveland knew that. Their suspect vehicle's windows were closed. Supposedly it was bang, and the car's driving by. No car takes off out of the spot next to Scott, which Cleveland lied about, but every witness said no car took off. No squealing of tires, no jamming gears. Rennie Gobain made his story up. All Rennie Gobain ever saw was just a college student just driving through the parking lot, if he saw anything. The other witnesses that saw that car did not think it was the murderer, did not think it had anything to do with the crime. The car wasn't speeding. It wasn't driving erratically. The driver wasn't trying to hide himself. Rennie Gobain lied and said he was. The other witnesses said the driver absolutely was not trying to hide himself. And on top of that, the windows were closed in the car. So does anybody believe that it was bang and window up and squealing out and taking off, and Rennie Gobain sees that car 3 seconds later going by him? away from Scott, way away from where Scott was. So there's no physical way any of that happened. Robert Cleland's not stupid. He's evil, but he's not stupid. He knew that. He knew his entire story was a fabrication. And his witnesses, who did not identify me, by the way, are the ones that said Scott was running and appeared to be coming from the area of the student center, running to his vehicle. So who's he running from that I'm supposedly sitting next to him shooting him?
Yeah.
Who's he running from? And who's the girl right there waiting? Who, by the way, would have seen me sitting there waiting for Scott in the car. So, again, Robert Cleland knew his entire story was a lie. If I was sitting in the car next to Scott waiting for Scott, that means that woman was looking at me the entire time, because she would have been directly in front of me, because supposedly Scott would be on my right and I would have been on Scott's left, and she would have been right in front of me, so kitty corner to Scott. And everybody knows how a parking lot is, a little barrier there, so she would have been no more than 6 to 10 feet from Scott when he was shot, which is the range of the entrance wound, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's likely the female is that shooter. And there was somebody else there. Did she give this guy a ride that was chasing Scott? Was she the girlfriend of the guy that Scott shot? Very good possibility. Was it Crystal? Crystal was having sex with a lot of people at that time. I rapped off some names to the police. She admitted some of them, like Arnell Hope, who sadly died later on, so we weren't able to question him. He died, I believe, in a snowmobile accident. But he told a bizarre story about Crystal that had nothing to do with me also, and about these guys at a Taco Bell that claimed they were, one of their buddies was having sex with Crystal, and he got into a physical confrontation with these guys. He was shown photos of me and said, no, I was not any of those people. So, you know, there's all this stuff going on before Scott's death. It's all a matter of record. It's all not me.
Hey.
She claimed Scott was chasing a high-speed pursuit on November the 1st. November the 1st, I was at a wedding in Escanaba in front of 250 people on video. So if any of this is true, Crystal Merrill knows who killed Scott. If she really was his fiance, and we don't even know if that's true, it's just what she said. We don't even know if her child, Brandon, is Scott's kid. The kid hasn't had DNA done, and he won't talk to anybody. And I know he listens to some of the stuff, and Brandon, if you're out there, I'd love to speak to you. But your mother lied, and she probably knows who killed your dad. And he may not even be your dad, because she was sleeping around a lot. But all of that aside, she won't talk. And they really can't, unless she's charged, they can't make her, and even then they can't make her talk. So she's going to keep this quiet. But if she really was his fiance and pregnant with his child, then he told her who those guys were that were chasing him. And we know those incidents happened, because those didn't come from Crystal. Those came from his fellow co-workers at George Ennis Menswear, where these incidents happened, seen by multiple people, including his supervisor, his manager. So he was being pursued by two guys. He knew who they were. He had an almost violent confrontation with them once. He hid from them the second time. He was running from that student center. He knew who was chasing him. And that woman was waiting by his car, and she was right there when a 12 gauge went off. Whether she pulled the trigger or somebody else pulled the trigger, she was right there when it happened.
Yeah.
And these are the facts of the case. These are the scientific facts. These are the physical facts. The wound is not consistent with a door shot out of a car. Cleland knew that. He knew he knew where the shot went in. He knew the angle of the round. He knew how the pellets were exiting under his armpit, and the guy was like 6'1" or 6'2". So that means somebody was holding a gun very low, pointing at a sharp upward angle, far below where a car door would have been.
Yeah.
So there's no open window on the suspect vehicle. There's no car door closing. There's no tearing out of the parking lot and then jamming gears and taking off to be seen by Rennie Gobain 3 seconds later, coming right by Rennie and crossing half the parking lot in 3 seconds, apparently. None of that happened. Even Rennie, as bad as his lies were, even he didn't say
Hey,
that.
have you ever heard of a inmate by the name of Danny Travis?
Why do I know that name? I know that name.
So he's been locked up
Michigan
since.
prisoner?
Yes, he's been locked up since 1978.
I know who Danny is, yeah.
Yeah. What do you? Because I'm trying to get an interview with him as well.
Okay.
He's in Lakeland.
There's a lot of guys here. If you have the time to cover him on your show, there's the Shoot is here, which is the Superman girl. That's Lisa. Lisa Lewandowski. Her brother is here, and he's absolutely innocent, and one of the best guys in the MDOC. He's just a great guy. He's a really, really great guy.
Yeah.
And another wrongfully convicted individual. We've got quite a few that are fighting for freedom right now. And
Well, this guy here, I
so
mean,
everyone knows.
this guy had witnesses that were testifying that he was at home while this murder occurred, that he was at home babysitting, and
Oh yeah,
there was testimony that the prosecutor would not allow into the court, and
yeah.
the judge himself even sealed testimony so that it couldn't
Oh
be
yeah,
opened. And so, I mean, it's just around this time, from the late 70s, the 80s, the early 90s,
yeah,
that whole
yeah,
era was just a
yeah.
slew of such corruption and ugliness, man.
And what people need to think about too is how many innocent people, male and female, how many innocent people died in prison because they didn't have innocence units, or the murderer didn't come forward, or the officer that framed the guy didn't get religion. There's a famous case. There was an innocent guy accused of killing his girlfriend, his fiance. According to everybody, he was just crazy about her. They were massively in love. She's brutally raped and murdered. A cop, convinced that he did it, even though he didn't do it, took his jacket, the suspect's jacket, the boyfriend's jacket, the fiance's jacket, dipped it in her blood and stuck it in the trunk of his car. It was years later that one of the sheriffs got religion. I think he became a Christian. And, he went up and made his confessional in the church there, and they're like, yeah, these sins to confess. Yeah, I framed an innocent man for murder. I mean, there have been thousands and thousands and thousands of those cases that we haven't heard about. And if any of you doubt the number of those cases, just think of the number of the ones we have heard about. Just think of the thousands that have been cleared since DNA. Now, the majority of wrongful convictions are not DNA-based cases. They're like mine. They're enormous police and prosecutorial and judicial corruption, and then a failing of the appellate system. Because, and I always make this point too, because everybody, just about everybody who ever got out who was innocent lost their appeals. You don't go home because an appellate court says you're innocent. That is so rare. It's usually 20, 30 years behind bars, and then eventually something breaks, or there's a new forensic technology, or the murderer's on his deathbed and he confesses, or the girlfriend that lied comes forward, or whatever it might be. I had a friend of mine who did 17 years for a sexual assault. He had a folder full of letters from the girl that she had written him, lying, admitting that she had lied, and apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry I did this to you, I'm so sorry. She then spent years writing the parole board and begging them to let the man go because she had lied, because she was mad and she was jealous. And the parole board, every time he would go see the parole board, they'd say, yeah, we know, we got the letters from the girl, we know all about it. Now you need to admit you're a rapist and a pedophile.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I'm not a rapist and a pedophile. And you just admit the victim's been writing you for 11 years at that time, 11 years. And yeah, we know, we don't want to hear that. You have to. So he literally, I think it was 17 years into his bid, because they were never going to let him go. Had to go, okay, I'm a rapist and a pedophile, and they immediately granted his parole. This is a fact. His name was Ricky Walker, just so everyone knows I don't make things up. This is the system we're dealing with. So this girl that was mad, made an allegation, and then later on came to the man's defense. I had a friend of mine, Stephen Lacoste, that did, I want to say, about 27 years for supposedly raping his own wife. And she had admitted years later to their daughter that she had lied. And the daughter wrote Steve, and I read the letters where she said, I hate my mom. She admitted what she did to you. She told me how she set you up. You guys were having a bitter divorce. She wanted all your stuff from your construction business, so she lied. And this is one of the first prosecutions for rape by a husband. And he did every day of that bit, even with those letters. And his own daughter saying, my mom's bragged about this for years, that she framed him, that he's innocent. Mm. So, again, this is our system. Now, that does not mean that those horrible things don't happen. But I can tell you hundreds of these stories just from my years of being in prison, and a lot of inmates can. And so people need to understand just how bad this system really is. That they're doing this, and they've done this so many times, and we're just now seeing how bad it is. And God bless Dana Nessel, because she was the first Attorney General in Michigan to have the stones to say, if you counties aren't going to fix it, I'm going to fix it. And there's a lot of counties in this state and a lot of wrongful convictions. And I hope she gets another term, because I'm afraid somebody's going to come in and shut that unit down before she gets to do any serious work with it. But, we've had hundreds out of Michigan already. And so if we've had hundreds, and a lot of them were DNA, then how many thousands are doing time that are innocent that just didn't have DNA like me?
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah. And
Yeah.
this is all over the country. This is everywhere. And of course, it's worse in some places than others.
So let me
We all
ask
know
you.
how bad Louisiana is.
Let me ask you
Parish is
this.
notorious.
Let me ask
Yeah.
you this because I have some people saying that COVID is coming back around in Michigan pretty hard.
No, actually, we've been doing great. We're doing really well. I want everybody to know, whatever you think about herd immunity, prisons are a great example of herd immunity. Our COVID deaths stopped quite a while ago. We run around maskless all day long. We interact. There's no social distancing. You know, they announce it. Nobody does it. Staff don't do it. The inmates don't do it. Nobody's sick. Nobody's dying. So I'm not minimizing COVID, but the point is we got through it. And I must have been exposed to thousands of people with COVID by now. And I have talked to people who are actively infected. I was one of the porters who helped move these guys' stuff around and like physically helped carry them to their cells when they were weak and sick. Some of them were just elderly and also had COVID, and I'm fine. So I think we're at that point now, in the MDOC at least. We do regular testing. We just had mass testing here last week. We had one positive, and the person is fine. And that's out of 1,500 prisoners. We had one. We had a couple staff. Of course, they're interacting in the world a lot that were positive, but they're also fine. So it doesn't mean it can't kill anybody, obviously. But I think prison is a great example of how herd immunity really works, because an enormous number of prisoners did not take the vaccine, and they're not sick. They have the antibodies. And obviously, contrary to what you're hearing in the media, I just heard Whoopi Goldberg say on The View, "I'm killing her." No, you're vaccinated. I'm not killing you. I have the antibodies and you're vaccinated. I'm not killing you. And we all now know if you have the vaccine, you can absolutely still get COVID. And
I know that personally.
A great big study just said the people that get the antibodies and get sick are less sick than the people that have the vaccine and get sick. So those of us who have the antibodies, because our antibody number is so much higher, are getting much, much less sick. Our body's immediately responding with this army of antibodies than those who take the vaccine and get sick.
Well, that's what the doctor told me.
A lot of people,
that's what the doctor told me, is that my antibodies were the strongest. It was stronger than the vaccines that were out.
That's right. That's how it works, yeah. Just so everyone understands what this means medically, it's very simple. When you get a lab done, they have a reference range or a set of values on the lab. So let's say iron. Iron is rated from 0 to 50. And that's parts per deciliter. And so recently my iron was low. It was at 45. So I was 5 points below the lowest that it should be, which means I might need a little iron supplementation. You take that with some vitamin C, and the number comes back up. Those are reference values used on labs. So when they do an antibody titer on you, TITER, what they're doing is they're counting the number of antibodies that are visible in a specimen, and then a number is created. Let's say 440 parts per million, as an example. So when you get the vaccine, you would have a theoretical, let's say, 200 parts per million. And so those are antibodies in a sample of 1 million cells, or an area they look at through an electron microscope or other mechanisms. They identify the antibodies. Oh, you've got a lot of antibodies. You have a large number of antibodies. What they're seeing, and again, this is science, no matter what anybody out there screams and yells about on Twitter and Facebook, the science is very simple. People who have natural immunity have much, much higher antibody counts than those who get the vaccine. There's a reason for that. It's not because vaccines are horrible. It's because the vaccine is the shell of the virus. They use the shell of the virus, which is a little spiky protein shell on the outside, which is how your body identifies the virus. It looks at it and goes, "Yeah, I know that guy right there. This is a spiky protein guy. I'm going to go get him." Okay? When you get COVID, that shell ruptures and releases viral material, the contents of the inside of the cell, the cytoplasmic material, into your body. And so now your body recognizes that material and the shell because you were exposed to both. So because you're exposed to living viral material and that shell, your antibodies now know what two things to look for. You're looking for the virus, and you're looking for the shell around the virus, which is a protective coating. When they made the spike protein vaccines, or the mRNAs, they're using portions of the virus. So there's a very simple scientific reason. Again, I'm not attacking the vaccine. Anthony Fauci knows this. Anthony Fauci is simply a pathological liar. As a virologist, as an epidemiologist, he knows what I'm telling all of you right now. If you go online, if they're allowed to be online when they are. There are a million epidemiologists that will tell you exactly what I just told you. This is not new special Republican Trump-based science. This is simple science. This is how vaccines work. We don't know the long-term effects of this vaccine, but we do know what happened with the anthrax vaccine. Thousands and thousands of soldiers were forced to take the anthrax vaccine, which they didn't need because they weren't being exposed to anthrax. That was garbage. There was no anthrax scourge. That started around 2000 with the Iraq War, and it was a bunch of crap. It didn't happen. We thought we had it everywhere, and we didn't have it. But anyways, the Army rushed out and put together an anthrax vaccine and they got incredibly ill. A lot of them so ill they had to leave the U.S. military, and they're permanently disabled. So it's because they rushed that vaccine. We rushed these vaccines. And so what we're finding now is, fortunately, they're not killing a bunch of people, though people have died. They're very weak. They're not good vaccines. If we'd worked for 5 or 10 years, we'd probably have a super vaccine, but we didn't want to do that. And I understand why. People were dying, and we wanted to get something out there. But it's not a very good vaccine. So what we're seeing is, in a couple of months, the vaccine sucks. And so now everyone needs a second shot. Now everyone needs a third shot. And everybody's asking, do I need a shot every 6 months? How long is this crap going to go on? Well, the booster is much weaker than the vaccine. We know that. It's less than half the strength. That's the science again. So it's not going to fix the problem.
You have some people believe that they're using the vaccinations to put like nanochips into people. Do you believe that?
Yeah. So everyone should know that's insane. We don't have that technology yet. We have begun working on things like nanobots. You guys can all go and research this. We do not have functioning nanobots yet. We don't have functioning anything that small yet. Nano literally comes from the term meaning incredibly small on a micron level scale, and things that are measured in nanos or nanograms, nanoliters and so on, are microscopic amounts of things. So the technology promise is eventually we can make these microscopic little robots, and they'll go on and they'll clean out your arteries and do all kinds of things. And we could easily weaponize that to make a thing that would kill you. We could definitely turn that into a weapon. As far as chip technology goes, we've gotten things pretty small, but not so small you can't see them in a vial, and yet they can beam out radio signals, because they still have to have a power source. They still have to have a transmission system, possibly a receiver system. So no, nobody needs to worry about that. Now, the content of vaccines is always a concern. For years we used thimerosal mercury, which is incredibly poisonous and does not leave your body, and we knew that. It was used as a stabilizing agent, and it's very possible the massive spike in autism came from thimerosal mercury in children. We know how toxic mercury, lead, and cadmium are for kids. So now we're using polypropylene glycol. We're basically using antifreeze. And it's a hyperallergen, and just so everyone knows, the reason I know this is because I have a lot of allergies and I have immune disease. And it's something you have to be very, very careful of. And we're not testing people for polypropylene glycol sensitivities, which is what you're supposed to do before you give them a vaccine containing that substance. So again, if someone wants to know the science, go look and see. It's not conspiracy theory. An epidemiologist will tell you, or an immunologist will tell you what I'm telling you. That is a dangerous substance. It's an incredible substance for causing immune responses, and it's probably part of what's making a lot of people sick, and it's probably part of what's causing inflammatory heart disease in all these individuals, is the response to that compound. Because these inflammatory heart conditions are similar to autoimmune disease. Inflammation takes place inside the body as a response to something that shouldn't be there, or something working much more than it should. So if you have an overactive immune system like I have, it's doing too much, and it starts to attack things it shouldn't attack. It's not just attacking COVID; it's attacking my joints, my brain, my organs, my skin, etc. So again, if I take a super allergen like that and I have a reaction, I'll have a severe reaction to it, and I already have obviously immune disease, antibodies, and I'm on chemotherapy, which I do every week for the immune disease. So everybody out there, educate yourselves. Don't listen to all the crap, all the insanity, and stop hating each other, and quit saying crazy things like "you're killing me." I watched a woman ranting that children were killing her. Unvaccinated children were killing her. We already know that children are not spreaders of COVID. That's a scientific fact. It's not Kensu's personal theory. It's a fact. We test these kids. They're not carriers. They're not spreading COVID. They're not killing grandpa and grandma. That's garbage. And we know that scientifically. And just so everyone knows the numbers from the CDC, more kids have died from the flu in the last year than have died from 2 years of COVID. We don't even really know how many kids died from COVID because they're giving us estimates from 300 to 500. More children have died of the common flu. If everyone wants to look it up, flu is short for influenza. There's a variety of flu viruses, coronaviruses, rotaviruses, noroviruses, rhinoviruses. They can all cause forms of influenza. And they kill way more children than COVID. And we're not going crazy about that. So we have to ask ourselves, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
I would never want a child to be sick. I would never want anybody to be sick. But you people need to start researching and educating yourselves instead of listening to one word or one line or one quote and going nuts. Because what we're going to have in America is we're going to have a freaking civil war is what we're going to have.
Well, we're gonna have that, and it's gonna be between Democrats and Republicans. That's where it's coming down to.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like there's millions of Republicans that are vaccinated. So, like I said, I would never put somebody down taking the vaccine. Why I have to listen to people like Stevie Van Sant, who I like as a musician, but apparently is a complete idiot, tell me that I'm a horrible human being. And on the national news, while he's talking about a Bruce Springsteen tour, this clown has to open up with, well, now that we know that half the country are a bunch of pieces of shit, and they're crazy and they're scumbags. He literally said this on national television.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to go look at the quote, he was on News Nation a couple weeks ago. He's talking about the Bruce Springsteen tour and whether or not they still email back and forth, and then he opens up with this rant attacking half the country. And of course, like most of those idiots, he's making a Trumpsonian Republican thing when every freaking Republican on Fox News says take the vaccine and they're vaccinated. And yet here's, so-and-so, oh, Fox News. I have not seen one thing on Fox News ever say don't take the vaccine. I haven't seen one article saying the vaccine is a conspiracy. I've seen them say the government shouldn't be telling us what to do. I haven't seen one person on that program ever say, "Don't take the vaccine."
Right. To each of their own. But it's like you say, you research, you understand, and that's it. And if you feel that the vaccine is applicable to your life, and you feel that you'll be safer and more comfortable taking it, then all do so.
But the problem is we're making fake enemies. If you're running around saying things like half the country are pieces of human garbage,
right?
Who you don't know, by the way, or if you're saying it's a Republican conspiracy, when just so everyone knows the numbers, 48% of African Americans, 42 or 41% of Hispanics the last time I looked, and an enormous number of people in the Asian community and the Filipino community and the Samoan community and so on are not taking the vaccine. It's actually more Democrats not taking the vaccine than Republicans, and yet CNN is ranting all day long it's a Republican conspiracy. So again, everybody, while you're out there yelling and ranting and screaming conspiracy theories, minorities are not taking the vaccine. Not because they're stupid, not because they're bad people, because they have their own reasons. Whether they don't trust the government or they're concerned about the history of racism in America and how minorities were abused, which is an absolute fact. It's understandable why Native Americans and Hispanics and African Americans especially, and even Asians, don't want to take the vaccine. But they're not Republicans, and it's not a Trumpsonian conspiracy, and he's not telling people not to take the vaccine. So quit lying. You're making fake enemies out of friends.
Right.
And that's what's going to lead to a civil conflict in this country, is that we're making enemies where they don't exist. We're looking for enemies where they don't exist, just like the wokeitarians are looking for insults where they don't exist.
Right.
This whole thing with Dave Chappelle, the issue of transgenderism is very simple for me. If you want to do that to yourself, that's your body. Don't say I have a right to abortion and yet I must take a vaccine. I have no say over my body. And I won't tell you what you can bolt onto your body or cut off. How about that? How about I won't try to pass a bill saying you can't cut your penis off or you can't get breast implants if you're a man. I'll leave you and your body in your bedroom alone. But don't tell me what I can say in a comedy special because you're so hypersensitive that everyone can be criticized but you, because now everybody thinks they can't be criticized. So now a black comedian says something about transgenderism, and he says something very scientific. If you are a human being, you were born with the present technology through a woman's womb in a woman's body after being fertilized with male semen. There's his scientific perspective, and that is the science.
See, again, but what's happening?
Follow the science, and they call me a piece of shit for saying that.
Right, but what's happening,
It's
T, what's happening is going back to what we were talking about the how they'll get up here and try to explain how a different caliber bullet can be applied to a completely irrelevant gun. You know what I mean? This is what they're trying to do, and they're trying to teach us to our children.
Big science.
They're trying to, well, there's 42 different genders, so there's a possibility that a man can have 32 of a female's gender, and even though that this is how they're trying to justify and explain it to our children.
People just making things up. There's adding letters every day and creating these categories, and it's like some crazy college kid just made this up. It's not some scientist in a laboratory. It's not some geneticist who's discovered other identities and other genders. It's some college kid with nothing else to do saying all cops are scum and must die. And by the way, I'm a P and R and a double Z. What are those? Well, I made them. You wouldn't understand. I'm too deep. You can't understand. I can't explain it to you. If you have to ask, you don't know. You know, if you don't ask, you wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Just let me make up crazy shit and you just agree to it. Go, oh, she's a double Z. I know what that is. Yeah, I totally respect that. No. Here's the problem, though. Again, there's where the Civil War, there's where the conflict is coming from. You're not going to make me say you're a woman. You're going to make me say you want to be a woman, you dress in women's clothing, you wear makeup, and I'll respect all that, and I won't beat you up and put you down and insult you and degrade you, and I'll treat you like a human being. And if you want me to call you Linda, I'll call you Linda. And if you want me to call you Dave, I'll call you Dave. What you're not going to do is tell me I'm a piece of shit because I believe you were born from your mother and her womb, not his womb, not your dad's womb, your mother's womb.
You're not allowed to say mother anymore. You're not allowed to. Nancy said you're not allowed to say mother anymore.
Right. And you know what they're going to get? They're going to get their civil conflict, and when they get their civil conflict, it's like a riot in prison. They're not going to win. They're going to lose horribly, and they're going to lose the progress and the rights they think they've secured by pushing people too far. You cannot push anybody to the edge and not expect them to try to fight back before they fall off the cliff. And so what's happening now is they're trying to beat everybody up and beat them down into submission, and all that does is makes these raging, angry people become violent who would never have been violent. And it makes people hateful who wouldn't have been hateful, and it makes people racist who wouldn't have been racist. You're pushing people into corners they weren't even in because they don't accept your particular ideology, and you're saying to them, I don't have to respect what you believe. You must respect what I believe. Nobody's going for that. So even the ones that pretend they do, like these companies that are selling out, their boards of directors don't believe that bullshit. They're just scared. It's like, oh, we totally agree. Look, everyone knows what Coke did. Coke said, oh, we're pulling out of Georgia because of the election law. The election law that, if passed in Georgia, would not be nearly as restrictive as the one in Colorado, where the baseball team went, the Atlanta Braves went, by the way. Mm-hmm. Major League Baseball went. And Coke doesn't give a damn about minorities because it literally makes them diabetic with nothing but junk and poison. It's killed God knows how many people with its death, its bottled death. They give a damn about civil rights. They care about profits, and this wokeitarianism thing is profitable right now. But the fact is, Georgia and the areas they took those jobs out of were predominantly minority areas. The money flew into minority communities. What Major League Baseball and Coca-Cola did was took billions of dollars from minority communities in Georgia and moved them to an all-white area in places like Colorado. So everybody ask yourself this question. Do you really think Major League Baseball gave a fuck about Georgia? Or did they see a chance to get out of the hood? Because like all those smart rappers that got out of the hood and didn't go back, Coke, Major League Baseball, and God knows who else said, hey, you know what? Hey, we're actually pretty racist. You know what we could do? Because it's all white managers and white employees and white owners. You know what we could do? We can get our products out of those black areas. We don't have to deal with any of that stuff, and they won't be coming in demanding jobs and bringing their transgendered friends and their pan-national friends. And let's just go to a really wealthy all-white area. Oh, I know. Let's go outside Aspen and Vail in Colorado. That'll prove we're not racist. Let's take our multi-billion-dollar franchise to a wealthy white area. And that's what they did, people. That's what they did. They weren't taking a stand against injustice in Georgia. That's bullshit. D.C.'s voting laws are more restrictive than Georgia's are going to be if the laws pass. D.C. has voter ID. Colorado has voter ID. This is more bullshit. But it shows you how much we're being controlled, that we're going to let Stacey Abrams come up there and rant and blob and yell, and then guess what? Hey, Stacey, you just cost your state billions of dollars, and you just screwed the minority community. AOC ranted and raged and yelled to make sure that New York didn't get a, what was it, Amazon? Yeah, didn't get Amazon.
Yeah.
And, 40,000 jobs lost to people in poor communities, and jobs in Amazon are great jobs. So what did she accomplish? She didn't stop Amazon from building a business. She stopped Amazon from building a business where she didn't want it to be, and she screwed her community over. This is what these dummies are doing. Now, do I think AOC's got some great ideas? Do I think she's got a good heart? Do I think she cares? I don't know. She says she does. But the things that she's doing are hurting the very people she says she wants to help. And she needs to take her power and take her celebrity and stop making a fool of herself, wearing things like those silly dresses at a $34,000 a plate gala, and then telling us the rich are all pieces of shit who aren't paying their fair share.
Yep.
That is why they are failing. And that is
Amen.
why change is not coming.
Amen.
The Republicans and the people who look at that stuff and would probably say, I believe in criminal justice issues, see that, and they go, oh, hell no, I'm not having anything to do with her. It's just like, I believe in electric vehicles, and I want everybody to know this. I totally believe in electric vehicles. But right now, Teslas are $100,000. The new Hummer, when it comes out, is going to be $100,000. The Ford Lightning is going to be like $90,000. All great vehicles. Wonderful, awesome technology, no question. We're not ready. We don't have a grid to run 300 million electric vehicles and charge them at night. We don't have the chips. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the places that know how to repair those vehicles yet. We are not ready. You can't make gas $20 a gallon. And here's Biden yesterday. Well, it's going to compel more people to start driving electric cars. No, it's not, Joe. Because the poor who can't pay for the gas can't afford the Ford Lightning. And it looks like an awesome truck. It's not even available yet. They can't afford the Tesla S. They can't afford the new Hummer. So maybe they can get a Volt. Volts suck, and they get recalled all the time, and they burst into flames, and they're terrible. It's a terrible vehicle. So, again, you can't force people to change by telling them they're pieces of shit, making them angry, taking things from them, and making their life worse. And this is the problem that we on the left are making horrible mistakes regarding, and why. Even CNN said yesterday, you're failing. You guys are failing. You're blowing it. Even Don Lemon was ranting, you guys are blowing it. And they are blowing it.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to get fixed like this. So what you're going to have is you're going to have a massive backlash. Biden's going to be out of office. Republicans are going to come in. They're going to lose the House and the Senate. And whatever plans they had are going in the dust because of the way they tried to do it. It's not that there aren't good ideas on both sides. It's the way they're trying to do it.
And then once again, we're going to be starting all over again. This happens every 4 to 8 years. You know?
Thomas, you're right. We are starting over again. That's one of the biggest problems in this country. And for everyone listening, I really believe we should amend the Constitution to fix the 4-year thing, and I'm going to tell you why. The countries that have, let's say, a prime minister, like Japan, okay, they get a lot done over a long period of time under one leader. So they have incredible technology, they have high-speed rail, they have amazing hospitals, they have these super efficient hotels. There are almost no homeless in Japan. There are very few poor in Japan. They're very well cared for, and they have an incredibly high standard of living and an amazing education system. But they maintain a unity in government that lets them follow through with whatever plans they make. Biden's Build Back Better thing is not building anything back and better. It's a stupid plan because it's saying we're building back like we had something great that we don't have now, and that's the period of time that he said we were all a bunch of racist Nazis. So I guess he wants to build back what we had before. It's a dumb idea. It's bad wording, and it's just stealing Trump's "Make America Great Again." But more importantly, they're idiotic plans. You don't fix the electric vehicle and pollution problem by getting rid of oil and making gas $10 a gallon, because everything is still made of plastic. Drugs are still made from petroleum. We still have to have oil. You just made everything cost more. You didn't fix anything. You didn't stop carbon emissions. You didn't fix anything. There aren't more electric vehicles on the road now, and there aren't going to be more electric vehicles in 6 months because everybody's going broke and everything costs a fortune and supply lines suck. So he's not fixing anything. He could have come in, left the pipeline, and then spurred the electric vehicle industry at the same time. And Republicans would have said, hell yeah, we'll sign on for that, sure, no problem. No, he could have left tax cuts and all this crap about the wealthy paying their fair share. The wealthy pay 90% of the taxes in this country, just so everybody knows, for those of you who don't know economics. The wealthiest 1% pay more taxes than all the poor in this country combined. That is a fact. So, and you can all go look it up, go to the Congressional Budget Office, check with any economics professor. What I'm telling you is absolutely true. So when they say things like, pay your fair share, he sounds like an idiot because the wealthy are paying insane amounts in taxes. To argue that you shouldn't be wealthy and you shouldn't have anything means that everybody in Congress should give their money up because they've got millions and millions of dollars and they're not giving it up.
Well, again, it's
and they have tax havens.
Again, all you have to do is look at the structure of what we're talking about. I mean, you sit here and you say that the president has 4 years, 8 years, and is out no matter what. But yet prosecutors have immunity and they have lifetime seats.
Right.
The House and the Senate have lifetime seats, but yet the President of the United States don't. Judges have lifetime seats, the Supreme Court lifetime seats. So these are people that that make egregious decisions, you know what I mean, that are sometimes even pernicious decisions, and there's no repercussions, but yet the President of the United States can be forced out of his seat in a matter of 2 years, 3 years. It's crazy.
And and like you and I discussed in the past, his crazy plan. I'm telling everybody right now. Here's my prediction. Ready? Never been wrong before. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. All that stuff they're talking about is not going to happen. They've done this forever. They've gotten trillions of dollars and said we're going to build this and do that, and it didn't happen. And this is not going to happen. It's a bunch of scams and nonsense, and it's going to get blocked, and money's going to get rerouted, and they can get trillions of dollars. I don't know why AOC thinks like she's going to get $3 trillion and suddenly the world's going to turn into a cornucopia of magical unicorns and high-speed rail lines and electric cars and butterflies. It's not going to happen. What's going to happen is Republicans are going to take over, and they're going to block all this crap because there's massive backlash against it because of the way that it was done. It's just like the Republicans fought to get rid of the Affordable Care Act because they were never allowed to be involved in it. They weren't allowed to have any input, and so every one of them said, I'm going to kill that bill. I'm going to kill that frickin' bill. If they had been a part of it, they wouldn't have wanted to kill it. But they were shut out of every negotiation. Every one of their motions and every one of their amendments was denied, so they all committed themselves to getting rid of that bill. That's what's going to happen with this, and there's nothing the Democrats can do about it. The states are not going to go for it. Governors are passing laws left and right to block all of this stuff, just like they're blocking vaccine mandates. They're not going to let this happen. And eventually, there's where the civil conflict's going to come from. When Texas says to itself, we've got our own refineries and our own oil wells, why don't we just make our own gas? And the government decides they can't, and some kind of a skirmish comes, that's when it's going to begin. Because a lot of these states are going to realize, I don't really need the U.S. government. Ron DeSantis has already figured out. He's got a port. He's got finances. He's got a lot of wealthy people. He's got a very diverse, multicultural population, and they don't like the government. And they've got a lot of money and a lot of political juice. And he's just literally saying every day, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, screw you, and I might run for president.
Yeah.
So when more states start figuring that out, and, South Dakota has, and obviously Texas has, then you're going to see a serious pushback against the government. So what's Biden going to do? Is he going to send the army to attack people in South Dakota? Well, then South Dakota's going to call up their own National Guard to fight back against the army Biden's using to oppress them. There comes a conflict. Then citizens start joining in. When citizens join in, hunting parties start. And that's what happens in every revolution. So everyone knows the history. In Vietnam, they went around village to village and just executed tens of thousands of people. In China, prior to communism, Chiang Kai-shek, they just went around, just anybody wore glasses, intellectual, kill them. And these little weaselly nobodies saw a chance to get some power. They saw a chance to go out there and just, I'm going to push this ideology. And they learned the little book of Mao, and they had it in their hand. And they would go to every village, and they would ask you trick questions. And when you got it wrong, they would shoot you right in your frickin' head because they had been given the power to deliver that kind of, quotation marks, justice to anybody who didn't follow the ideology. The problem was they were killing a lot of people who would have followed the ideology. Just like Hitler killed a lot of Jews that would have defended Germany. Mm-hmm. If Hitler was smart, Jews loved Germany. The Jewish people loved their country. They loved their nation. If he had not made them the enemy, if he had said to the Jews who were very wealthy and very powerful and very educated, and they were the best doctors and the best lawyers, they knew all the laws, they probably would have helped him build an army that conquered the whole frickin' world. But instead, he wanted a scapegoat, he wanted an enemy, he wanted somebody to blame, and the Jews were a very convenient target because they were doing well and there were a lot of poor Germans. They were doing well because they have a strong community. That strong community allowed them to take care of one another, and they got educated, and look what they did. So that's what's going on right now. It's kind of like that. This government is isolating groups of people, and they're going to fight back. And it's going to be horrible when it happens. I think it's going to be uglier than anybody ever thought possible. And that's when I fear that a foreign country like China, who's building a massive offensive military, will go, you know what, America's in a civil war, now's our time.
Yeah.
China and Russia they're already trolling the seas together. They're already teasing Japan. China's telling us flat out we're going to take Taiwan back, and they're firing up hypersonic missiles. We just had one fail. I think it was yesterday, and China just fired off two. They traveled around the entire world. It could easily kill us. So everybody out there, you need to figure out what you really want. I think you want a revolution. You don't, because if there's a revolution, the left is going to get slaughtered. And I'm telling you, I've been in prison rides. The left is going to get slaughtered. And here's why they're going to get slaughtered. Because the right are the hunters and the military and law enforcement. These are guys that can drop a deer at a mile away with a scoped rifle. Okay? They're not these kids that play video games all day long and live in their parents' basements and then take signs and go kick people in the face at rallies when they're on the ground. That's not who those guys are. If you guys start something like that, these are the guys who know how to make explosives. They know how to defuse explosives. They know how to drive military vehicles. They know how to fly fighter jets and helicopters.
Right. It's the definition of
they don't want that.
It's the definition. I mean, you're talking about a conservative-minded person. So anybody that's conservative-minded is somebody that's self-protective. They're conservative. Right. This is what conservatism means. It's
they know how to do booby traps. They're not peaceniks. Okay. They already don't like what you're doing to them and what you're saying to them and how you're abusing them. And right now they're putting up with it because Republicans don't go out in the street and riot, but they're the ones that know how to make booby traps, and they're the ones that are incredibly armed and have military experience and law enforcement friends and family and experience.
And that's not to say, it's not to say that a person that's in the street rioting is not a Republican. That's not what Temujin's saying. When he says that Republicans aren't in the street rioting. But the thing of it is if you're in the streets and you're rioting and you're a Republican, you're not a conservative person. So therefore, you're not a Republican.
Right. No, not at all. Exactly. Yeah, and the ones that do that, the kids that do that, I understand their frustration. My God, I've lived with frustration for 35 years. I totally understand frustration. I understand hating a crooked system. But I'm telling you kids out there, you need to listen to me. You're not doing it the right way. This is not how to fix this. Making enemies of half the country until there's a conflict is not the way to go.
Of we the people.
If you guys want your own nation, then everybody should just go to Congress and say, let's just split the country into two and just get it over with. Put a dividing line down the middle of the frickin' nation, decide who's on the left and who's on the right, which is almost, I feel like, the direction we're heading in, I don't want to see any kind of a conflict like that because it's going to be so
We've been there, but we've been there already. That's what the Mason-Dixon line is. We've divided the country before, and it didn't end well. And it didn't end well.
Yeah. And when a conflict comes, and I'm really, really afraid a conflict's going to come. I don't even like the comments that Merrick Garland has made in his attempts to weaponize the FBI. This is insane. Americans, you're seeing this now. You're seeing all these parents in schools like, I'm not buying this shit anymore. People are getting angry, and something's going to happen. And it breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart because I spent 35 years in hell. I don't want to go into a world that's trying to destroy itself. I'd love to go out there and take the rest of my life and fix problems and help people and make this world a better place. But unfortunately, I'm watching this all the time, and it's terrifying. And so many innocent people are going to be swallowed up in this thing.
Well, it is, the thing of it is...
She's the sweetest little thing in the world. She has got a malicious bone in her body, She doesn't want to see a conflict either. I don't want to see a conflict.
But
my
it is...
sons are the nicest kids on the planet.
It is what it is, T. It is what it is. And the thing of it is that you have endured what you've endured through your life for a reason. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why
Yeah,
you
I
were
believe I do believe
prepared
that.
and gone through what you've gone through. And we don't know what that reason is. We don't know what the reason is that I've gone through and such. So it's,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. And maybe you may come home at the right time to stop conflict. Who knows?
Well,
Who
I got a
knows?
chance to speak to my former attorney, Bridget McCormick, who's the Michigan Supreme Court Chief Justice, and she's an amazing person. She's an incredible legal scholar, but she's also a very giving, caring person, And I briefly mentioned to her on the phone after the rally. She was at a dinner, and I got to say, I just want her to know I'm heartbroken by what's going on, And it was very clear she felt the same way. We all want to see things get better, but if they're not getting better this way, being at each other's throats is not making anything get better, and neither side is budging and listening to the other side, so they can't get together on anything. So you can't pass the bills you want to get passed, you can't build the things you want to build, and now we're heading towards tearing it all down. There was the riot the other day at the federal thing over the environment or whatever, and I mean it's not stopping. It didn't fix anything.
What riot at the federal thing? What are you talking about?
I just saw it in the news. I think it was over an environmental issue. In fact, they questioned Merrick Garland about it, and he said, "Oh, it happened at night, so I don't consider it a terrorist act." But it was people trying to break into another federal building and burn it down or something. It just happened. If you Google it, I'm sure it'll pop up right away.
I must
have
missed
that. Last week or so.
Yeah, I must have missed that. I've been
busy.
busy.
I just caught the tail end of the news. But I mean, it's not. That stuff's just not stopping. That didn't fix anything. That didn't get a law passed. That didn't get an animal protected or the environment protected. It didn't accomplish anything. And that's the stuff that continuously goes on. And then the people on the right, like me, I love the environment. I'm not going to work with somebody who's attacking some federal building at 3 o'clock in the morning because they're not happy about some policy. That's not the person I can have a meeting with and fix anything with. That's some dumbass who wants to burn some shit down and then go back home and eat pizza, drink pop, and play Nintendo in his parents' basement. That's not somebody fighting for change, I know they're angry. I totally understand their anger. Take that anger and turn it in a positive direction. Now, just so you understand, there are a million great people out there doing positive things, like that rally. Paula knew nothing about any of this stuff. She was a banker. She didn't know any of this, and now she fights for people all the time. She's helped so many organizations. She's defended everything from the LGBTQ community to people being religiously oppressed, to people suffering in horrible prison conditions. She's helping innocent people around the country. I mean, she's just giving and giving and giving because she found a cause. She's not out burning and looting. She's actually getting something done. I had a guy come to me the other day who barely know who I was and said, "My mom told me about your old lady, and I had to come meet you, Kensu, because I'd heard your name, but I didn't really know you. And my mom told me your old lady is out there just busting her ass, helping people, doing Zoom calls with all these people, teaching them what to do, organizing these rallies." So they just asked her to run a podcast about, thanks to you in part, because of the housewives thing. They want her to do something kind of like that, and you're probably going to want to be involved in it too, if you want. And then there's this guy at this radio station out in California that wants to do a big event, and it looks like Paul's getting pulled into that. But here's why: because she's
hold on, the guy in California with the radio station is the
you know about that.
Yes, well, I've been in contact with him and I talk to him almost daily now, but he's the one that wants me to interview the gentleman that I described earlier that's been locked up for 44 years.
Yeah, Travis.
Travis. That's probably where you've heard that name from.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I know who that is because I've been transferred 48 times. I've been everywhere.
He's in Lakeland right now.
Okay, well, I've got people over at Lakeland right now, too. My Uncle Bobby was over there running the dog program for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I would love to work with this guy, obviously, but here's somebody who's actually willing to throw his time or his money or whatever at the problem and fix the problem. He understands running out with a sign and burning something down is not going to fix anything.
Right.
Action is going to fix things, That rally got a bunch of politicians to listen to us, and it brought in families who don't get involved in this stuff, and it brought organizations together, and it's already leading to more stuff. but it was a positive rally. You were there. It was a very positive rally.
Yeah, it was. It really was.
Now, when you look at like Trump's inauguration and Madonna's standing there like a dummy, and her entire career has been basically acting like an ass and saying stupid things. To go, I thought a lot about blowing up the White House. Yay, Madonna, you're awesome. That didn't fix anything. That rally was a bunch of people acting like idiots. I understand you didn't like Trump. Okay, great. But a bunch of people acting like morons does not inspire anybody to fix anything. Stop acting like idiots. You people are smarter than this. You're better than this. You have dreams and aspirations. Start building things instead of burning things down. Yeah. Start bringing people together instead of tearing them apart. Stop accusing everybody of being everything from racist to homophobic. Educate them. Speak to them. Ask them why they believe what they believe. And if they don't believe what you believe, let them see an example in you that makes them listen. You know, a lot of religions use that example. Buddha said, be a shining light so that the world wants to be covered in that enduring flame. Christians are told, you know, be the light of Christ, be an example. What would Jesus do? That's what everybody out there should be doing right now. Why should I care about your cause? Why should I want to help you? If you start calling me names or putting me down because I'm older than you and I have different viewpoints, or I don't think something's offensive that you find's offensive, you're not going to unite anybody. You're just going to have a bunch of people who believe in what you believe and calling other people names. You're not going to build anything, you know. And you know, I want to give people a great example. I was probably pretty anti-gay when I was young. Because my mom was a party girl, and she hung around these gay guys, and they always wanted her to go to club and party, and so then I hated all the gay guys. I didn't know jack about homosexuality. I was a kid. But her gay friends like, let's go high, let's go get high, let's go get drunk. And, you know, they would act all crazy, and they were doing all the very feminine, you know, mannerisms and things. And this is the 70s, and that wasn't obviously very cool back then. But more importantly, I saw these as the guys who would take my mom out to go cheat on my dad. They absolutely knew she was cheating on my dad. So I developed an animosity against these homosexuals, not because of their sexual activity, which I didn't know a damn thing about, and I never saw it, I never watched a gay video. It's because I saw this group of gay men getting my wife to cheat, to cheat on her husband, who loved her very much. My stepdad was very faithful to my mother, and he loved my mother. My mother wanted to go to the bar and get high and sleep around. Okay, great. So my point to everybody out there is my bias against homosexuals when I was young had nothing to do with homosexuality, which I knew nothing about gay culture. It was a personal interaction that had nothing to do with their lifestyle. Later on, when I was with my first wife, Galen, we made friends with a gay couple, and they were two of the greatest people I ever met. And they totally changed my perception of homosexuality. They were polite, they were friendly, they were kind, they were generous. They'd have us over for dinner. We'd have amazing conversations with them. We'd sit around and drink wine. I learned a lot from them. They were very intelligent individuals. Suddenly, gay people were just people to me. I didn't have to have it preached. I didn't have to be called a bunch of names. I didn't have to be told that I was a homophobe. I just had to see homosexuals acting like normal human beings and being good people to other people. And that was all it took for me to go, I guess I was wrong. They're not all bad. And now it's not even an issue for me. And I have a gay cousin, and I have a gay son. And just so everybody knows, my son is a homosexual, and he will tell you that there's a reason I told him again, I don't care. I don't care about that. I want you to be happy. I love you. That's what matters to me. So people need to understand that's how problems get fixed. I don't mean incidentally. I simply mean people have biases. Calling them names, yelling at them, spitting at them, telling them what a piece of shit they are is not going to make them go, you know, I need to rethink my entire paradigm. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So the movement that we want, that Thomas and I talk about, this thing we want to put together, has to begin with an agreement that we're not going to beat the fuck out of each other over every stupid, petty-ass point. Let's have a common goal, and whether the person's a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian.
Well, that only comes through just accepting the fact that you don't know every fucking thing. You know what I'm saying? That
exactly.
You don't know everything.
And all your viewpoints aren't correct. You're not a super genius. You haven't figured it all out. You haven't solved the world's problems. Einstein's not looking down you from the pearly gates going, gee, I wish I was as smart as that guy.
For real.
You know, you've all got all the answers. You don't have all the answers. You don't, and you're wrong about a lot of things. Look, you know, I'm not trying to beat up on AOC because I think in a lot of ways she's a good person. But, 3 years ago she said we're all going to die. We've got 12 years, we're all going to die. Al Gore told us that bullshit 25 frickin' years ago. We've got 10 years, we're all going to die. The polar bear is going to be coming down through Canada eating people, and Florida is going to be under 12 feet of water. It was all bullshit. And then he went and he made billions of dollars. He invested in oil companies. He flew his private jet around. It was all bullshit. Al Gore doesn't give a fuck about the environment. And I don't care what anybody thinks about that. I read his books, I watched the movie, and I watched his lifestyle. He's a complete fraud. The point was, we were all going to die 25 years ago. 50 years ago when I was young, the planet was going to be frozen. We were all going to be long dead 21 years ago, because by 2000, the planet would be a solid block of ice, because greenhouse gases were going to stop the sun's warming rays, and we were all going to freeze to death. Now greenhouse gases are causing heat to bubble under the earth and blah, blah, blah. So again, that's not science, that's bullshit. And then when, someone comes out like Obama and goes, oh, the scientists agree. No, they don't. There are hundreds of thousands of geophysicists and climatologists who don't agree. So again, you can't fix the problem by lying and saying insane things like we've all got 6 years left to live. You ask any person if they've seen a significant change in their life, environment-wise, in 6 years, and they're going to tell you absolutely frickin' no. My mom's been in the same house for 40 years, and she's seen no change except a slightly milder winter. So that does not mean we should not fix the planet. That does not mean we should not get rid of heavy metals. That doesn't mean we shouldn't go to better energy sources. That doesn't mean we shouldn't look at clean energy forms. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have more efficient vehicles and thermal windows and insulation. I'm not saying any of that. But stop saying crazy things like we have 6 years left to live. All the scientists agree. Because that's the kind of stuff, those absolutes that make everybody who doesn't agree with you go, you're a freaking idiot, and now I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say.
Right.
And 3/4 of what they say might be right.
Right.
They might say a whole bunch of stuff that's dead on right that would convince me. But because you're saying stupid things that I know scientifically are not true, and I have a library on climate, both pro and anti global warming and so on. I don't just pick up a subject and take a viewpoint.
Yeah.
I study it. And it's an obsession with mine. When the whole COVID thing came out, I got a ton of stuff on virology. I had tons of downloads sent to me. I had Paula researching cases and studies and everything. My buddy Dave and so on. That's what you guys should be doing out there, okay? Again, going up to the Dave Chappelle rally and tearing a guy's sign out of his hand and calling him a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And telling him what a scumbag he is, when all he said was, I think Dave Chappelle is funny. He didn't say, Dave Chappelle is right about transgender issues. He said, I think Dave Chappelle is funny. Now, for you young people out there, 20 years ago, Dave Chappelle was making a lot of anti-white racist jokes. A lot of his show was ragging on white people. He had a ton of skits that insulted white people. I wasn't offended by that. I was fine with that. I didn't hate Dave Chappelle. I didn't want him picketed. I didn't want him to lose his contract. You see?
Well, T, I got to wrap this up. Yeah, I'm here.
I lost you.
No, I'm here. I'm listening to you.
So my point is now they want to shut him down and silence him, and he can't talk. He's a horrible human being. So that's how far we've fallen. Where he was just a comedian, and white people weren't mad that he was making a lot of anti-white racist jokes. He did skits on the Klan, and he had one, the whites, the neighbors next door, what did he call them? It was a skit. It was hilarious. But basically, they were like, oh yeah, he actually used the N-word for a white family. And then he had like these black characters that were like, being mocked in the skit. And the point was, it was a hilarious skit because I didn't see it through a racial filter, even though it was kind of ragging on white people. It was a hilarious skit. Richard Pryor used to make jokes about white people all the time. I thought he was an incredibly hilarious comedian. He probably couldn't get booked now for half the things that he says. Don Rickles was hilarious.
Oh, there's no question. He's got
A lot of people didn't. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know he was Jewish. He attacked everybody, including attacked Jews all the time. I never knew he was Jewish, so they had that giant celebration for him like 10 years ago before he died. I didn't know he was Jewish. And he made Jewish jokes all the time, He went after everybody, and everybody was okay with that because they knew that he loved everybody. But he actually spent his entire life donating, giving his money away, helping every cause you can imagine. That was Don Rickles' actual life. Going to hospitals, putting on benefit shows, helping veterans. He gave away everything that he had that was him. But his thing was, I make fun of everybody. You know, we should still be there, and I wish we could get back there, but I don't know if we can, Thomas.
Well,
so as far as fixing this,
well, it's gonna
stuff,
take what it's gonna take is we the people, just the common community, to understand that we are what matters. The community is what matters.
Absolutely.
It's not the government. It's not what they say. It's not what they tell us to do. Again, Thomas Freeme, like I say, I don't negotiate with terrorists. You know,
there you go.
I do not negotiate with
terrorists. That's my position totally with all this abusive crap. I don't negotiate with terrorists.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, if you look at the word terrorism and the word terrorist, and you just use the definition, you know, that's applied to it, you'll see that our government is ran with terrorists. There's a lot of terrorists in our government, and just because they're telling us who the terrorists are, you know what I mean, doesn't mean that we can't make that decision upon our own of who is a terrorist and who's not. So I'm not talking to these people. They have to come to me, and I'm gonna and right now I'm nobody. You know, right now one of them might be looking at me like, who the hell are you to come talk to? But I promise you, I'm moving in a direction that I'm gonna have 50,000, 100,000 citizens, we the people behind me, and you're gonna come talk to me at that point. You know what I mean? So
exactly. And what everyone has to just simply understand is, I care about your cause, whether you care about my cause or not. I'm willing to help you with your cause if I can in some way.
Yes.
Don't beat up on me. Don't call me names. Don't put me down. Don't tell me I'm a piece of shit. Stop saying half the country are white supremacists. That's such a crock of shit. I've been in prison with real Nazis. So for all you idiots out there who don't actually know what a white supremacist is, there's not an army of white supremacists running this country, okay? You can't get 12 guys at a Nazi rally in this country now. I don't even know if they still have Klan meetings anywhere, and you're still out there screaming, everything is white supremacy, white supremacy. If you want to say that whites have had it better than minorities, abso-frickin-lutely. Mm-hmm. If you want to say minorities have been dogged terribly and Chinese coolies were murdered on the railroads and slaves were butchered and abused horribly and so on, I'm with you 100% on all of that. All of that happened. Native Americans, horribly mistreated. No question. Polynesian Islanders, horribly mistreated. I could go on down the list. I know the histories. Don't tell me I'm a white supremacist and I've had white privilege my whole life, because I haven't had a fucking thing handed to me since I was a kid, living in a horribly abusive home, winding up in a horrible abusive juvenile system, and then spending 35 years in prison for a murder I didn't commit, in a horribly abusive prison system and a horribly abusive court system. My so-called white privilege didn't get me shit. Mm-hmm. So that bullshit is exactly why I won't listen to you. When you blow that crap out of your mouth, you've lost me, and you've lost my support. If you say, would you support greater rights for Native Americans and better jobs and reservations, and would you acknowledge that they've been horribly treated and relegated to the background? Absolutely, I'm with you. Would you, if you want me to add, oh, by the way, I'm a Nazi and a racist, and I should hate myself and every white person? Nope, not happening. My ancestors are Scottish. We didn't kill any Native Americans. We didn't keep any slaves. So that's where you lose people. That's where you lose people. You have to stop doing that. Everybody is not a racist. Everybody's not a Nazi. Everybody's not a homophobe just because they don't agree with you.
Right.
So you and I have always agreed about how horribly minorities have been treated. Absolutely. Do they need help, advantages, protections? Absolutely. They need better living conditions. Do I want to see the families restored so that these young boys and these young women are not running with gangs and going in prison and so on? Absolutely. Do they need better health care? Yes. Better access to education? Yes. All of those things. But do I want a minority person screaming at me and calling me names all day long, even while I support him getting better treatment, or him or her getting better treatment? No, right. Now you've lost me. Now you've lost me. Now you've driven me away from your cause. I'm not going to sit at a meeting and listen to you say every white person in this country is a Nazi, and then devote 10 hours of my day and a couple $1,000s of my money to help you with your cause while you're saying I'm a Nazi and a racist, and I've always benefited from my white privilege. Not fucking happening. Got my ass kicked every time I went in a black neighborhood when I was a kid. You're not running that white privilege crap on me. Have whites benefit?
You mean, hold up, T, you're not going to come out and kiss nobody's feet?
No, no, not at all. No, no. I will fight for anybody I will fight for anybody who's legit, and I promise a lot of groups and organizations I will be there for them, and I will. But the minute I go to a rally and you stick a bullhorn in my face and tell me what a piece of shit I am, and then ask for my donation and put your hand out and want me to break out the wallet, you're going to be coming back with an empty hand.
You know, you got white people. You actually have white people out here that are just walking around kissing people's feet and telling them, you know, that they're.
I've literally have seen that, or groups apologizing. I'm not apologizing for shit for what a bunch of other people did that I had nothing to do with. Sorry, those things happen. Absolutely. Will I help you? Every one of those exonerees you met is an African American.
Yes.
I have never discriminated, and I've never picked and choose who I help, other than to say, is this serious? Is this legit? Does this person need my help? They're right there. And are they going to be respectful in helping them? They're going to kick on my door and say, do this now, kiss my ass. It's what these kids are doing. They're alienating everybody who would stand with them. People would stand with the transgender community if you didn't come out and call them a bunch of pieces of shit. And if you didn't say, you suck for your viewpoints. I don't like your viewpoints. You're a monster. You have to accept.
Well, for me, the bottom line, T, for me is, I don't have a problem with transgender rights, and I don't have a problem with that. But until we get black rights established first, you know what I mean? These people that have been enslaved, you know, pretty much for the last 400 years, until we get them straight, I don't want to hear about transgender rights. I don't want to hear about gay rights. I don't. I really don't. I'm sorry. It has nothing to do with them.
That's because racism isn't just a big part of our history. We killed and enslaved millions of people.
Right.
We all know what happened with Native Americans. We all know about giving them the blanket infected with, you know, smallpox and things like that. We know these horrible things. Even missionaries did this stuff. We know that. We know about the Native American schools. They weren't even allowed to speak their language. They were beaten if they spoke a word of Lakota. We all know these horrible histories, and they are horrible, and they need to be understood. And just like with World War II and the Nazis and the Jews and the concentration camps, and Stalin, who did the same thing, by the way, we never talk about Stalin. He killed way more Jews and had way more camps.
Yes.
But we need to acknowledge all of that, and we'll show those things never, ever, ever happen again. But some of these new things these new issues that are coming up are not as important as the big issues. So my concern, my focus is the big issues. There are thousands of men and women men and women in America's prisons that are suffering and aging and sick and dying for crimes they didn't commit. There's an appellate system in this country that won't do shit for you unless your name is Trump or Biden. You have to have money. You have to be wealthy to get action from an appellate court. Everybody knows that. Our Supreme Court is failing us miserably. Trump's appointees didn't do what Trump wanted, and a lot of our liberal appointees didn't do what the liberals wanted, and they're fixing nothing. Now they just refuse to take every freaking case.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. What are they doing? What is the Supreme? They're not hearing anything.
No. You have 9 justices who look at a couple of cases a year and then pretty much just spend their free time gallivanting around their yachts and going to dinner parties and being told how wonderful they are and lecturing at colleges. They're not doing any work. They have a pile of clerks who do all their work for them. They have these preformed opinions, and they refuse to take case after case after case. They've refused. How many COVID cases have they refused to take already?
Yeah.
How many vaccine mandate cases have they refused to take? But we're going to do the NCAA players' compensation in sports case. Oh, that required the U.S. Supreme Court to weigh in. The nation's being destroyed. That doesn't require our attention. That's insanity. That's simple. That's absolute insanity right there. We need to fix the big stuff. And so, you know, that's what we'll do, Thomas. You and I will fix the big stuff.
Somebody's got to do it, partner.
We can do it, bro.
What you gonna do for the rest of the day?
Let's see. Today is I've been up for 2 days straight, so we'll probably get a couple hours of sleep, and then I have to go to my fake job in the gym. I'm a porter in the gym, and I'll get a little workout in the weight pit tonight, and then I'll come back and call my little baby bear, and I'll probably talk to the dogs on the phone for a minute, and make a meal. And I got a lot of people I got to write and thank, and so I got a whole bunch of thank yous going out right now. So everyone knows I'll be on the Crematorium podcast next week with Miranda Bailey. Should be phenomenal, and everybody should check out Generation Y. They did an amazing podcast. They really tore the case apart.
Yeah.
The Prosecutors podcast, also, people, please check that out. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And understand, everybody out there, This case is growing because these issues are mattering to more and more and more people. So this is a sign we can get this fixed. We can get legislation passed. We can get innocent people out of prisons. We can get protections for criminal defendants. We can stop a lot of what's going on right now. My case has become so big, not because I'm some special human being, because it's one of the worst wrongful conviction cases ever. But it showcases, it highlights all the things that are wrong with the system. Literally, I suffered from everything except racism. That's it. I suffered from everything but racism. And I even suffered a little bit of that because I had groups that wouldn't help me because I was white. But as far as the abuses in the case, whether it was the torture, attempting to extract a confession, witness intimidation, withholding evidence, making fake evidence, jury intimidation. I could go on down the line, all the abuses you could have in a criminal case, and then a completely ineffective appellate process until I got to one honest federal judge who had the stones to do the right thing and call out the man that framed me for this murder. And God bless U.S. District Court Judge Denise Page Foote of the Eastern District of Michigan. But you know what? That she shows you what can be done because she put it on the line. She put it on the line. She was a federal judge, and she called out what was done to me by a sitting federal judge. That woman is a superhero. There's a woman who said, I'm going to do the right thing, even though it's probably going to make my life a little bit harder. And I'm sure she paid for what she did. I'm sure she got a lot of glares and a lot of evil stares and a lot of comments. And I don't know what all she went through, bless her heart. Mm-hmm. But she did the right thing. And if a person like that, in a position that high, can do that, if Dana Nessel can risk harassment in office and accusations and maybe even a second term by opening the CIU, and let's all pray she gets a second term. If she can do that because she was that committed to doing the right thing and getting innocent people out of prison, so committed, I think she risked a political career to take that brave step. I think every one of us can do something to make things better. And people are. People are leaving their jobs because they don't want to be forced to take a vaccine. Yep. Not because they're anti-vaccine, because they don't want to be forced to take a vaccine. There are a lot of people out there that said, I'm going to take the vaccine, but I'm not going to do it on their schedule, and I'm not going to do it because they said I have to.
Right.
That's people taking a stance.
Yep.
There's a firefighter in California who just lost his job because he refused to discipline two firefighters. He refused to discipline them. He's supposed to reprimand them. Well, what happened was one guy took the vaccine and got tested for COVID and was positive. He had two guys who hadn't gotten the vaccine but got tested and were negative. He was then told to reprimand these guys for not taking the vaccine, even though they were COVID negative. But the guy who took the vaccine was COVID positive. Now, this guy is a very well-loved fire station chief. His men love him. And fortunately, the Attorney General, I may be wrong, I don't think it's California, but the Attorney General of his state is coming to his defense, and a lot of other people are too. But his whole issue was, you wanted me to beat up on this guy, these two guys, because they didn't take the vaccine, even though they don't have to take the vaccine. And you wanted me to formally reprimand them, and then the guy that took it, that you rewarded, has COVID. He said, this is why people don't trust the process and don't trust the system. Then you fired me because I wouldn't verbally abuse these two guys.
Right.
So this has gotten crazy. It's making people not take the vaccine because you're making them angry. It's causing what they now call vaccine hesitancy. That is an example of everything we're doing wrong. You look at all the school board fights with the teachers, and here's Merrick Garland's going to drag in the FBI, and they're calling these parents terrorists. When Garland was questioned in front of Congress, he literally lied and said, well, there's been I did this based on violence against teachers. And he was questioned by a senator who said, violence where? Name one case of violence against teachers. When did a parent assault one of these teachers? Or even threaten to kill the teacher? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have that. Well, hold on a minute. You just stick your Justice Department and the FBI on these people. Just give me an example of a teacher that was assaulted by one of these parents. Because we know some of these parents have been assaulted, including by the police.
Yep.
Just show me some cases. I don't have any of those. He literally said, I got it from the media. Now, I'm not trying to beat up Merrick Garland, but, dude, you are the Attorney General of the United States. You literally implied that these parents are terrorists. And here's his argument. Well, I didn't use the word terrorist in my memo, but then the Justice Department did, which he's overseen, by the way. They did.
Right.
And now you have all these angry mothers who wouldn't have been angry mothers and wouldn't have united. And guess what? They're already 1 million strong. So by trying to oppress the people and put them down and call them names, you made them unite together against you. And now these mothers groups are huge, and they're getting more and more powerful, and they're kicking people off of school boards, and they're fighting against things they don't like in the schools, like some of the policies we've discussed in the past on this program. And guess what? The government screwed up. You just awakened a sleeping beast, and they're growing in numbers every single day, and they're uniting across the country. In the meantime, now there's congressional hearings, and now the AG is getting blasted. So what did you accomplish? There's that same thing again.
Yeah.
And we have to. This is what everybody's got to figure out. We have to start getting along and saying we have these common causes. Let's fix these problems, and we can fix every single problem we've got the minute we unite together. I know it sounds so cliche, but it's true. And that rally was a good example. And so for everybody out there who wants you to know, Thomas came all the way to Michigan. He almost lost all of his gear. he got an Uber. The guy drove off with all of his stuff.
Unbelievable.
He took it in stride. He got it all back. This is a good man, and you should be listening to him and listening to his program because he cares so much. He came all the way here to help tell our story, and very few people do that. So he's not just talking the talk; he's walking the walk. So everybody listen to Thomas Freeme podcast and share it with your friends. And pretty soon we'll have some celebrities on here, and we'll have 1 million followers, and we can put out calls to action and imagine what we can accomplish.
No question, it's coming, partner. Hopefully the next time I talk to you, be face to face, man, for real.
Well, you have to agree. Remember, you got to agree to come back to Michigan.
Well, I already made that. That's why I said. I mean, the only way I'm coming back to Michigan. I'm telling you, man, and Paula and I, we were laughing so hard about it because like I told her, what you guys' license plate is the realest slogan. Like, that is pure Michigan, and that's all you can say about it, man. I mean, how was your trip to Michigan, man? That shit was pure Michigan, man, for real. I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there.
We used to be the winter wonderland, and thanks to global warming, we lost all of our snow. So we were also the Great Lakes state for a long time, but now we're just pure Michigan. Pure Michigan,
and man.
You can decide what that means, but right now it's not meaning anything very positive.
Pure corruption.
So it's getting better.
Pure corruption. You come to Michigan, and you may not leave. Yeah. God damn it.
We just got called out by the Center for Public Integrity, too. They just came after us and said we are, horrible. We are not a transparent state. We are an honest state. We are not a good state. And, we used to be a great state. We were the motor city. We were the vehicle city. So many great musicians came out of the state. I mean, come on, Motown.
Yeah.
We built the cars. We built the ships. We built the planes. We did it all.
Well, this is the thing, and this is what Americans need to understand, because everything what you described about Michigan and Detroit is absolutely true. But look what corruption does. Look what corruption does to a state, to a city. It will destroy it. It eats it from the inside out until it's nothing but just a carcass of whatever it was.
Yeah, we got turned into a place for toxic dumping and lead poisoned water in Flint with a governor and an attorney general in cahoots on the whole thing. We like I said, we lead the nation of wrongful convictions. We have a horrendous prison system. We have a horrendous health care system. This state has really gone to hell, and it's not because there aren't good people who want a better state, but I think everyone's so frustrated just getting through their day. And as
pure
things
Michigan.
get more expensive, as it gets harder to get by, you have less time to focus on fixing problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's almost nice having the luxury of being in prison because I can pontificate all day long.
Right. So for all of those reasons, T, I'm not coming back to Michigan, partner, unless you get out. I made the deal with you, and I told you when you get out, I'll be back in Michigan. But now, if they do the rally, like the radio station wants to do another rally, I think in December or January, and he's talking about bringing some big people over there. So I may come back up for that. I mean, if KK shows up, I may show up just to shoot my shot with her. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, no, I'm always going to be there to support, partner, wherever it is. And again, that's what I told the citizens there, is that no matter what cities a rally is going in, if I can get to that city, because again, for me, it's about uniting all the communities. So if I can bring my message from city to city, I'm willing to do that, man.
Yeah, I thought this one turned out really well. We had really good unity there. You know, nothing's perfect, but it's one of the biggest ones we've had, and people are still talking about it. It's still resonating. Guys in here are really wired. We're going to get a good time law passed in Michigan. We're going to get some kind of productivity credits and or good time. And, you know, we're working on getting rid of the natural life penalty because mandatory natural life is always abused. It's supposed to be used for the worst of the worst cases, and it's not. It's used for anybody that won't plea bargain.
Right.
And so everyone understands that's a horrendous system to be under, where they'll sentence you to die if you don't play their game. They don't think you should die when they offer you the 5 years, but when you don't take it, they think you should die, and then it's natural life, and they will fight to keep you in prison forever. And we are one of the states that we abuse the crap out of that law. So we're working on that too. And the innocence issue, obviously, we have an attorney general with a CIU who's, you know, really committed to fixing the problem, which I feel bad for. She's got like 1,700 cases pending. I mean, obviously not every one of those guys is innocent, but a lot of them, males and females, a lot of them probably are. And I can't even imagine wading through that many complex cases trying to solve the problem, because our appellate courts aren't doing it. They're just not. They're not taking this seriously, you know.
Yeah.
And you get caught in the gears of the system, as you know. You know, that monster does not want to let you go.
No, and that's it. I mean, you're forgotten about. Once you get in there and you're behind that locked door, it is a tremendous amount of movement and power to unlock that door.
Yep. Well, think about this for anybody listening. It's been a 35-year fight for me. I was here at the same facility in the 1990s. I was in the ABC Evening News 6 times. I passed polygraphs literally on national television. And everybody thought I was going home, and right after that, our Michigan Supreme Court denied my appeal. Wouldn't even look at my issues. By then, I had 20 law enforcement officers. I had federal agents. I had reporters. I had scores of attorneys. I had prosecutors all saying that I was innocent. And I had members of the Attorney General staff conducting an investigation who concluded that I was innocent. They came to see me at the Kenneros Correctional Facility and said, "We absolutely believe you're innocent." And 6 months later, I was told that Jennifer Granholm shut the investigation down when she was the Attorney General of Michigan. And then when she was the governor of Michigan, she literally refused to grant me a commutation after I won a habeas saying I was completely innocent of this crime. That's the kind of stuff that has to be fixed.
Yeah.
That she could do that and go to sleep at night is horrendous in and of itself. And now she's in the Biden administration making a fool of herself as the energy czar who knows nothing about energy, and saying crazy things like quit complaining and buy an electric car. But all of that aside, as the Attorney General, her own agents concluded that I was innocent. And then she said, yeah, shut it down. So, and she's still in power. That should terrify
even more power than what she had.
Yeah. Right. That should terrify her. And then she became governor, and people went to her and said, this guy's completely innocent. And she actually basically quietly approved my public hearing and then let them rate me at this thing. And then came back and said, well, you know, the parole board didn't support his release, so I'm not going to let him go even though he's completely innocent. And by then I had a federal ruling saying I was not just innocent, but that I had been framed for murder. That woman then went on to try and get in Obama's administration, fail, try to have a program of her own, the War Room, fail, and then get picked up by Biden, you know. So she beat up on Obama and you know, thought he was the worst thing in the world and that Hillary was going to save us all. And so then she tried to weasel her way into Obama's administration as energy czar, car czar, and financial czar, and she knew nothing about the three. And she destroyed Michigan while she was here. She was a terrible, terrible governor.
Yeah.
Still despised to this day. Charlie Kirk still writes about her. And yet, you know, here she is now as the energy czar, no idea what she's talking about, and gas prices are rolling through the ceiling. Wind farms are collapsing from lack of maintenance. Power blackouts everywhere, and winter's coming. So, as they say in Game of Thrones, winter's coming.
The winter's coming.
So, yeah, and that should terrify everybody out there, because not only did she never pay a political price for the horrible things that she did, she now has more power than she had before. This has to stop, people. We have to demand good people in office, and we have to demand honest people in office.
Well, we have to put a system in place that we can get these people out of office. There has to be.
Exactly. Way too hard.
Yeah.
Way too hard. You know, and when they're not keeping their promises, they shouldn't be able to get away with that.
Right. That's
Whether
exactly
it's
right.
strengthening the recall mechanism or whatever we have to wind up doing, there should be a way to say, okay, you made 12 promises. You've been in office a year now. You've kept none of them. You know, our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, promised to fix the roads. She ragged on Snyder and said, "It's the roads, dummy." You know, remember it's the economy, stupid. She ripped that off, and it's the roads, stupid.
Yeah.
So her first executive act was she cut $88 million in the budget from roads and bridges. So she ran a campaign on fixing the roads and bridges, and then she cut a huge chunk of money from roads and bridges, and then she maintained Heidi Washington as our director after everybody demanded she get rid of Heidi Washington. So she made it clear her first week in office, I'm not fixing shit. I'm not fixing anything. And when it came time for the commutation issue, and just so everybody knows, when Senator Levin was literally dying, Carl Levin, a giant in the Senate and a hero, I think, for this country, when he was pleading with her and dying and saying, please, do the right thing in this case. This man didn't do this. You know he's innocent. When he was writing personal letters and calling her and talking to her attorneys and begging her, we didn't know he was dying. We had no idea the man had cancer. He's such an amazing human being. And he was doing all this while sicker and sicker and sicker. Snubbed him. She absolutely snubbed him. She refused to act. And not only did she refuse to grant my commutation, she did what Jennifer Granholm did. She blamed the parole board. That's not the criteria. The whole point as the governor is that you have the commutation power to use because the parole board failed to grant a parole.
Right. That's what commutation is. Yeah.
The commutation process.
Right.
That's what it is. Remember, it's been locked up noses, but for free people, the process is there. When the appellate courts and the parole system failed, then the governor can look at the case and say, and in my case, even her lawyer said to her, this guy's innocent. And we know this because we had inside contacts. So she knew that I was innocent. And she not only refused to grant me any justice, while this giant in her party was begging her to do so. But she knew he was dying when he was doing this. We didn't know
all of this sounds so eerily similar to Kamala Harris and what was going on out there in California, with those death row inmates and the DNA and all of that. And it was just...
Right.
But
not prosecuting the priests that were raping boys. I mean, not prosecuting mob hits. She had her history is
horrible. Her history, there's blood on her hands, literally. I mean, she literally let people die that were innocent. So, and now she's the vice president.
Yeah.
Just as you said, this person here is now in the Biden administration. They get promoted for being evil.
Yeah, exactly. And I just watched a long screed against Kamala Harris about all these things that she had done when she was in California. And I saw an interview with parents of children who've been molested for years, and she refused to prosecute the priests that were involved in this. And I just, again, we all know why they put Kamala in office, and she wasn't right or ready for this. And that's why I love Tulsi Gabbard. The reason I love Tulsi Gabbard is because she was a veteran. She had a great political plan. She had a great financial plan. She was strong. She was intelligent. She was beautiful. She was gifted. She'd served as a captain in the military. She wanted us out of Afghanistan just like Biden said he did. She ticked off all the boxes they said they wanted to tick off, from woman to minority. But, Hillary didn't like her, and Hillary ragged on her. And apparently that was the death knell for Tulsi. And even though she performed phenomenally in every interview and in every debate, she could not get a foothold because people in power, for whatever reason, didn't want Tulsi in power. But as far as the kind of president I believe she would have been, as a veteran, she would have got us out of Afghanistan the way a veteran would get us out. And I'm a vet. Every veteran knows what to do, people. That's not how you pull out of a country. You don't leave the enemy $94 billion in top flight weapons and technology. You don't leave all your people behind. What you do is you get your informants and your spies and your assets out first. And then you start getting all your toys out. Just like when Russia left Afghanistan, they drove out their tanks and their jeeps and they flew out their planes and their helicopters. And then when you're ready to go, then the military leaves after you blow up and break everything that the enemy could use. It's a very simple system. Instead, we did the exact opposite of all of that. And so again,
who paid for all that stuff that got left behind so carelessly?
The American taxpayers, and now the Taliban has them. They're selling to China and Iran. While they're lying to us, guys like Ron Klain are lying and saying, "Oh no, that stuff doesn't even work." The Taliban's running YouTube videos, flying our helicopters around,
yeah, you can see
driving
them.
our up-armored Humvees and our Bradley fighting vehicles and our MRAPs, which are anti-mine vehicles. They're all carrying our M4 assault rifles with our night vision scopes and special optics packages, and they're selling the rest to Iran and to China. Literally, they're taking our stuff apart and figuring it all out. So they're actually flying people around in our gunships now and hanging them from the helicopters. So that was insanity. But that's my whole point. Those people were not ready to lead. Doesn't mean Democrats couldn't lead. They were not the people ready to lead, and so the country's being destroyed and being divided. And lastly, because I don't want to burn everybody's ears out, but Joe Biden caused this criminal justice mess with the omnibus crime bill, which he and the Clintons pushed. What Joe has not done since he came in office is anything to fix it. He was constantly assaulted about this during the campaign, and he's like, "Oh, I thought this then, but I think this now." Well, not one bill, not one action to fix anything in our criminal justice system by Joe Biden. Nothing to fix our prison system. Nothing. How is that possible? How did we get all these progressives right there with this man, including everybody from Cori Bush to Rashida Tlaib to Ilhan Omar to Alejandro Ocasio-Cortez. Ocasio-Cortez, and they're right there with him, and they were all super criminal justice advocates. How are they not able to get this fixed? I think all those people are the ones we need fighting this fight because they really care about this issue. Joe's doing nothing on that. So whoever's pulling the strings, as great as they are, as vocal as they've been, as supportive as they've been to our community, nothing's pending, nothing's getting passed.
And it's not going to. And it's not going to. Nothing is going to change, people. Nothing's going to change until we come together.
I think you're right.
Until we come together and we show the government that we know that we're the boss, that they work for us. First, we want all of this immunity to be stripped away, right? We want a system in place that if we can raise 5 million signatures, your ass is out no matter what or whatever,
right.
However.
Right. Or something, yeah.
It's
got to be fixable. We have to stop accepting all these politicians lying to us and then getting into office and breaking every single freaking promise they make. One thing I always say about Trump, no matter who hates Trump, and he had many, many flaws, was he actually tried to do every single thing he said he was going to do.
You'd have to show me, other than the bridge, or other than the fence, the gate. You know what I mean? When he said that he'll make Mexico pay for it, but he damn sure tried to. He damn sure tried to.
Well, he did in other ways, obviously. He told Mexico, "I'm going to destroy you financially." He got them on the tariffs. He got them on the trade deal. And he also said, "If you keep letting people march across your country, I'm going to crush you. I'm going to break you guys financially. I'm going to make your lives a living hell." And so, guess what Mexico did? Told all those Guatemalans milling down at the border, don't even bother trying to come this way.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying. Unless you can show me, and not just sit there and tell me, "Oh, well, he didn't do this." Okay, but no, show me that he didn't do what he said he was going to do, at least within the first 100 days of his presidency.
Right.
The man was on TV. He was on TV every day letting us know what was going on, what we were facing, what his solutions were.
Right.
We heard from this man every day. Every day.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that's the thing I tell everybody too. This woman actually sent a message through my Facebook saying, what did Trump, what promise did he keep? And I was like, oh my God, he kept like 26 of them. But regardless, even if you hate him, he was one of the very few politicians who actually came and did what he said he was going to do. The difference is that Joe Biden said, I'm not going to shut down the pipeline, and then he shut down the pipeline.
And then he shut down the pipeline.
Yeah, all the things he said he wasn't going to do, he did.
And that pipeline is dead now. You know that, right? Like, it's not on pause. They actually packed everything up and got out of town because they knew it was unwinnable.
Yep.
So there is no more pipeline project.
They're going to Canada and places like that, and they're going to route things across Canada now, But and that's why I'm always praising Dana Nessel, because as disappointed as I am in Governor Whitmer, and not understanding why she doesn't just fix the things she can fix, even if it's by executive order, just start fixing stuff. She could definitely fix the entire MDOC with a phone call if she wanted to. Dana actually said, I'm going to do blank, 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 and blank. So I'm going to fix the problems with the sex offender registry, which was a massive abusive thing in Michigan. They were putting people in that registry for like peeing in a field, and now you're a sex offender. It was nuts. Dana did that. Dana said, I'm going to open a CIU. She actually told somebody very early on, I know about this case, I know about this issue, I'm going to do something when I'm in office. And then bam, she did. And she went and she had a fight and scrap, and she got a budget for it, and she brought in these great people. And even for my case, she brought in these phenomenal people that nobody can question their knowledge or their integrity or their skill as investigators or attorneys. She kept her promise. She protected children. She's suing chains that are abusing, customers in Michigan right now. She protected people that were being kicked out over rent issues. She protected the elderly who are going to have their power shut off. I mean, all these humanitarian things that she said she was going to do, she actually did. And she's still filing more suits for this state right now. She didn't come in as some political hack and just push, one or two causes. She literally started doing every single thing she said she was going to do. Now there's some things and some people that she did that they don't like. But the point was, she did what she said she was going to do. For me, that's all I need in a politician. Tell me who you are. Tell me what you're going to do. I'll support you. And then when you get in there, actually do it. And if you try and you fail, that's fine. I understand that happens. She's just the Attorney General. She's not God. But when an issue comes to her, like a civil rights thing, especially this big stuff, like with businesses and things, she goes after them right away. She's brought multiple cases. She's protected so many people in this state. I mean, she must be just swamped. I often joke that, I understand why I'm still here because she's so busy, and I know everybody wants me out, and I want to go home too. But, I mean, the CIU thing alone is so big because she took up the slack for, 35 counties. But her advocacy is what led to other counties now opening CIUs. So, she didn't just keep her word. By keeping her word, she inspired other people to do good things. That's what politicians are supposed to do. I think Whitmer could have come in and started keeping all of her promises, whether people liked it or not. We would all be fighting for her re-election. She would have enormous financial support. Now all my liberal friends are saying, I'm not supporting her, I'm not giving her a dime, I'm not helping with her campaign, I'm not donating, I'm not doing anything. They don't even want her in office. I have 100 liberal friends that are like, I'm voting for James Craig, because they hate our governor. And that, you had the power to do so much. You literally had a mandate. You had a mandate. We always use that word mandate. We overuse the word mandate. You had a mandate to fix it. And you had an attorney general who would have backed you on everything, a fighter who would have come in. I really want to see Dana run for governor. That's what I want to see. I want to see her run for governor. I do. I want to see her run for governor. I mean, our governor is just, COVID alone, she let all those inmates die, about 150 of them. She wouldn't let a single one go home. That's insane.
Yeah.
People are dying on ventilators. Why would you keep them in prison? How evil do you have to be to get messages? Well, this guy's got a year to go and he's on a ventilator and he's not going to make it. Oh well, screw him.
Again, at the end of the day, you have to answer to a higher power. So.
Yeah, well, she keeps talking about her higher angels. She says she answers to her higher angels. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What humanitarian thing have you done in this state? This state is a train wreck. Our prison system is a mess. The streets are a mess. What have you done to make this state better? There's so much you could do. There are some people that would help you do it. I don't know what she's thinking. I really don't. I don't know if it's advisors. But Dana, the thing with Dana, she doesn't care. She's just going to go do it. Nobody's going to advise her not to take on an issue. Nobody's going to tell her what to do. That's why we're all begging. We're begging and praying that she's going to run for governor.
Well, we'll see.
She would be awesome. Nobody's going to
see.
boss her around or tell her what to do. And if the House and Senate don't go the way she wants to go, she's going to figure out a way to just get the thing done, because that's what she does. She just gets it done anyways, And if we could find a couple hundred more politicians like that, we could fix every single problem in this country. So I think our message should definitely be, especially as we grow, start talking to these politicians and saying, listen, don't tell me what you think I want to hear.
No question.
I'm
interviewing.
I'll help you do it.
I'm interviewing one Monday out of Michigan. Lakeisha.
Who are you interviewing?
Lakeisha.
Who's that?
Lakeisha Tarode.
Oh yep. And don't you know Corey Bush?
No.
Oh, I thought you knew Corey Bush. I thought I heard that somewhere.
Not by
It was
the name.
somebody else.
It doesn't jog it doesn't jog my memory as of right now. But Lakeisha's the first one that I'm actually going to have on the show because she was there at the rally that day.
Bless her heart. Bless her heart. Thank you for coming, Lakeisha.
Yeah, and I just watched her. Again because I'm not negotiating with terrorists, but
Now, is she a House rep or a senator?
She's a House rep, I believe. She's for Flint, City Council for Flint, and she's running for House rep, maybe?
That's my home city.
Yes. So I'm going to have her on Monday explaining exactly who she is and what she's running for because I'm quite unsure now, but that's definitely Monday.
Well, you know what? You should try to get an interview with Chris Swanson, who's the new Genesee County Sheriff, which is also Flint, by the way. He is awesome. He is. I just actually saw him on Fox, and even though he was on a conservative network, Paula met with him personally, and he was amazing. She was blown away. He's intelligent. He's bright. He really wants to see change. He's willing to listen to ideas. He literally came on Fox and said, "I want people to give me ideas. I want input. I will listen.
I got plenty. I got plenty.
Yeah, well, listen, get a hold of Chris Swanson. I'm sure he'll probably give you an interview. He was just at a rally they had that Paula attended, and he actually came over and spoke to her for quite a while. He saw my sign. He was actually interested in my case, took some information down. She sent him more information and wrote him. And then just by chance, I saw him a few days later on Fox News, and he gave a really amazing interview. And it wasn't some, right-wing rant. It was, I want to fix things. I want to make things better. I want to fix these problems, I want to fix our city. And Flint, has been famous for being a war zone for a long time. And a lot of minorities are murdered in Flint, and a lot of minorities come to prison from Flint and Genesee County. And here's a guy who, instead of saying he wants to lock them all up and throw away the key, is saying, I want to fix these problems. I want to stop these young people from getting murdered and going to prison. That's the kind of sheriff that you need right there,
Yeah.
And, definitely give him a call and say, hey, Mr. Kensu gave you a sterling referral. I'm definitely going to go see him when I'm free and offer to at least buy the man lunch.
Yeah. Well, T, man, it's been real, man. It's been another 3 hours, man.
Sure enough.
Knocked another 3 hours out, man. That's over 12 hours I got with you, man.
My baby sister listened to our last program, and she goes, I heard a lot of things I liked. She goes, I heard a couple things I was really mad about. And but she was fine with it, And I was like, which thing? She goes, it doesn't matter. It wasn't anything that I would divorce you for. My baby sister. But her point was just, you guys were pretty graphic. And I was like, well, we're cons. We're not butterflies and snowflakes. We're cons. We did hard time in ugly places. We've got some rough edges, but we're here and we're fighting and we care and we're trying to help and make a difference. And I'm willing to fight for just about anybody who's got a good heart and a good cause. And
Amen.
That's why she's still my baby sister after all these years, and that's why she's still in my life. She knows
Amen.
who I am as a human
I mean,
being.
I think our conversations are pretty passive and pretty easy going.
Yeah, well, I have a great time talking to you. I love these conversations. The MDOC got mad because they were like, well, you guys are really off topic. I think you talked about aliens or something. And I was like, yeah, seriously. And I told Paula, I hope they start trying to censor my speech on radio or a podcast and deciding what content they think I can and can't engage in. My right to access the media is not dependent upon what the MDOC thinks I should talk about. And when I heard that was you they said that to, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, you guys have lost your minds. You don't tell me what I can talk about with a reporter. What's next? You're going to put a wire on me when somebody comes to see me on a legal visit?
Well, see, that's what they're trying to do with George Skates. Skates is in Ohio on death row. He's been locked up since the 70s or 80s, I believe, and he was involved in the Lucasville riots, right? So.
Oh yeah, those are horrible. I remember that.
So they give me the permission to interview him, but I can't speak about the Lucasville riots. I can't speak about his prison sentence. I can't speak about his original charge. So essentially, all I can talk about is the weather.
Well, okay, now just that's completely illegal.
Yes.
The very premise of the right of an inmate to communicate with the media, which is founded in several Supreme Court cases, is to talk about your case. So the majority of the media that wants to come see a prisoner doesn't want to hear his viewpoints on Adrian's and the fashion of the day. They want to hear about your case. So for the prison system to say he can't talk about his case, when that's the fundamental right of contact with the media, is a huge free speech violation. And what I would probably do is tell the Ohio Department of Corrections, you've got like a week to fix this policy, or I'm going to get a lawyer and I'm going to sue your ass off, and you're going to lose, and I'm going to get the interview anyways.
They've already
Because
lost.
the reason that
They've been sued and lost already, and they're still bucking against it.
Well, that's why I mentioned this earlier. The public needs to understand these prison systems engage in these abusive practices, and it's the taxpayers that pay. These prison officials are not losing money. I won $60,000 against a nurse named Susan McCauley. She was a monster as a human being. She mocked the dying and the sick. She messed with people's medications. She lied on thousands of grievances. She was having an affair with a doctor who was abusing patients. His name was Miles Patrick Light. The guy was just a little demon. And Susan McCauley was the health unit manager at the Saginaw Correctional Facility back when we had, I believe the company at that time was still Wexford United Healthcare, and then later CMS and PHS. And to my knowledge, she may still be with the department. I sued this little monster. She came into a federal court and she lied her ass off under oath. She claimed she didn't even know who Miles Patrick Light was. Now, just so everyone knows, and I won't go too much longer, I was involved in the state investigation against Dr. Light, which led to his termination. I met with Christine Neisowitz from the state's investigative agency regarding this matter, gave testimony. Dr. Light was found guilty. He was removed from the facility. He was terminated. Other actions were taken against him, which included the fact that he had this affair with Susan McCauley. She sat in a U.S. district courtroom and lied under oath repeatedly and said she didn't know what I was talking about. It was only by a miracle that I convinced the judge to let my lawyer ask one more question and frame it in a different way. And now she's under oath, and he said to her, "Do you know a Miles Patrick Light?" Now she's stuck. And she said, yes, I do. And now the jury looked and said, you were just lying and saying you didn't even know who this guy was. Now you admit you know who he was? Who is he, Susan? And like a dummy, she spills her guts, and she goes, he's a doctor I had an affair with. And then she says what nobody knew, including us. And she was seeing him again during my trial and living with him. So while she's lying about not even knowing what I'm talking about, she's living with the very guy that I was talking about. So was she charged with perjury? Nope.
Nope.
Nope. So she got caught lying 3 times in a federal courtroom under oath. And then, without admitting she lied, she told the truth. And she should have been immediately arrested by the judge. I don't know why Judge Roberts didn't have her placed in cuffs and taken right back by the U.S. Marshals. But she didn't. But the jury did award me $60,000 against Susan McCauley. So that case is Kensu versus Steve. Anybody wants to go look at it? I'm not BSing. I won $325,000 in that case against a variety of individuals for horrible abuses I suffered under the lack of health care in the MDOC. But Susan McCauley was one of those monsters. The point was, do you think Susan McCauley paid that $60,000?
Oh, no.
Nope. State of Michigan paid it.
Of course,
so she never paid a price. So after lying in a federal court and losing a major lawsuit, she continued as a health unit manager for years after that in the MDOC. There's your tax dollars, people. That's what's going on in these state and governmental agencies, and that's the kind of stuff that has to be fixed. And every one of you should be furious when you don't have money for school bus drivers or school lunch programs, or you're pumping $7 gas into your tanks. You should be furious because
this is what I don't understand. This is what I don't understand. Yeah. It happened in America's face, and it's like they don't even care.
Right.
It happened in the fact that how Hillary Clinton created a whole false, just
the Russian.
Yeah.
Russian scam,
the impeachment, a whole false impeachment. Yeah, it was completely fake. But we took a president of the United States through a fake trial, right?
That's right.
Through a complete fake trial that was completely fabricated. Right. There was no facts, no truth behind it for a year. Exactly. This was the president of the United States. What can happen to you? What can happen to a citizen, just a normal citizen that don't have attorneys, don't have this political backing? They're just somebody who just got swept up into a system because they look similar, or maybe they just had a similar record to what the crime was, and they're thrown in prison for the rest of their lives, or their careers are ruined or whatever.
Brian Kilmeade just said the most terrifying thing in this country is having the U.S. Justice Department come after you. because they will destroy you.
There's no
They
question.
will find or make up something, and even if you win somehow, they will crush you financially, and you will have nothing left when you are done.
That's it.
So, listen, everybody knows Hunter Biden is just a horrendous human being.
Horrendous human being.
We watched the media for 4 years go after Trump's kids and call them every name in the book as they gave up millions of dollars.
Talk about how Trump wanted to sleep with his daughter and all kinds of crazy stuff, man.
Sick stuff endlessly, exactly. And yet Hunter Biden, anybody can go online. That whole laptop is now available for review, and it's hookers and Russians and cocaine, and the little scumbag lied on a gun application, which is a federal offense, which any of us would go to prison for instantly.
20 years.
If any of us lied on a federal gun application, we would go to prison. Then he leaves the gun. The Secret Service goes and gets the application from the business to try and make the evidence disappear. He lies. I don't know anything about that. Then how does the Secret Service know to go get this? It just goes on. He's banging his deceased brother's wife. What a human slime ball. And now this whole art scam. Oh, $500,000 for my paintings. Nobody would even put him in a gallery. Nobody would put him in a gallery 2 years ago. He's a joke. He's not an artist. And, mystery people are going to buy my paintings, and I won't know who it is. Bullshit, because anybody who has the painting is going to make it known. Hey, I got Hunter Biden. Regardless of all of this is, again, not an attack on Democrats. This is an attack on the hypocrisy of the system. You hated Trump, so every single thing he did went under the microscope. We know from Hunter Biden's emails that Joe Biden has been running financial scams with that kid for years, getting kickbacks from countries. He's one of the most corrupt politicians who's ever been in office. How are we going to fix anything in this country when we all know this? We all know this. It's not that I want Trump back in office.
Well, because
that's we all know this corrupt, senile old man is the president.
It's, oh my God, it's maddening, man. It's hair pulling, because the first thing an idiot will say to you is, well, at least we got Trump out of office. It's like, come on, man.
I have heard that many times. I have heard that so many times. I'm like, listen, I understand, he's not the best human being.
Yeah, he hurt your feelings. I understand. He hurt your feelings.
And he had affairs, and I know he did all kinds of stuff that Bill Clinton did and Biden and everybody else did. But at least you knew what you were getting with him. At least he told you what he was going to do. He wasn't being controlled by anybody. Nobody was controlling him and saying, hey, come out and destroy women's sports. Joe Biden doesn't write his speeches. Joe Biden doesn't write bills. Joe Biden doesn't write plans. When the redhead comes out and Psaki's, the president thinks this. The president thinks that. The president really believes this and that. Really, Jed? When did you learn that? When did he tell you all that? When he was napping at 3 o'clock? Jen Psaki, the president didn't tell you any of that crap. You're making it up because you're 1,000 times smarter than Joe Biden, and you can answer things quickly on the fly, and you can make up bullshit really fast. Kayleigh McEnany was good at answering quick, too. The difference was she spent hours with Trump every day. Jen Psaki doesn't. And when she goes, the president's plan, oh, really? The president wrote a massive congressional plan? The president wrote a 2,600-page bill? Joe Biden did that, huh?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, Joe, the plagiarist. The man that can't even write his own speech. Come on, stop it. Stop it, America.
Last in his law class in a plagiarist. He wrote a 2,600-page detailed bill. Did he really? He cited all those federal codes and acts. No, he didn't do any of that. He hasn't done anything. He goes to bed at 3 o'clock. He doesn't take questions. And he tells you he's not allowed to take questions. They're going to get mad at me. What am I doing? I'm going to get in trouble. Who says that?
Yeah.
So, everybody knows this. And so, again, you can't unite the country under that.
No.
You need somebody in that office. No matter what anybody thought of Clinton, Clinton brought everybody together. Whether you thought he was a rapist and a monster and people were being murdered around him and all the conspiracy theories and the bad things that were true, he at least brought some people together. George Bush at least brought some people together. You get people to agree on things. Unfortunately, it was a fake war in Iraq we should never have had.
Yeah.
But he still brought people from both sides together. But by the time of Obama, that was over. He wouldn't even invite Republicans to the White House. He decided it's me now and us, and we're just going to do our own thing and screw you guys. You're not going to have any say in any of this. And that's when the division began. And I really expected way more from Biden. I really did. I really thought he was going to be a good president. I thought he was going to fix the criminal justice system. I thought he was going to fix the economy. I really believed all his job stories. I really thought we were going to build solar cells here in America. I really thought we were going to have this wind farm future, and I thought all this stuff was going to happen, and none of it manifested because it was all just, pipe dreams.
Yeah.
But that started a division. He made it very clear he was excluding the Republicans from everything, and that led Nancy Pelosi, who used to work with Republicans all the time, let her exclude them, and it was over after that, and now it's over.
It's over now.
Just so everyone knows, Carl Levin, who just passed away, the amazing senator, he wrote a great book called Getting to the Heart of the Matter. But he has an organization he formed called the Levin Center here in Michigan, which I just made a donation to because I love them, and I love the senator and his family. But the point was, guess what the purpose of his organization was? Bipartisan coming together on common sense issues that everybody agrees on. So he actually created an organization whose sole goal is just to bring people from both sides together. Because Senator Levin came from that time when he was friends with Joe Biden, the old Joe Biden, but he was also friends with the Republicans on the right, and he could sit down and go out with this guy and have lunch. He could have lunch with them, Nolan Finley has been a great defender of mine from the Detroit News and a conservative. He used to talk to Senator Levin all the time, and he said in an article, we didn't agree on much, but we could talk like gentlemen and have a great conversation. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. And it's like literally in a couple of years, it's all gone. Now, Ron Jordan is not sitting down for lunch with Nancy Pelosi, and, Chuck Schumer's not sitting down with anybody on Fox News, and nobody on CNN is sitting down with anybody on the right either. And so now we all just hate each other. And now we're all divided. Now nothing's getting done, and things are just getting worse.
And that was the plan the whole time.
You think so, brother?
I do.
Breaks my heart to think it's true, but it almost seems like it was just too well crafted to be an accident.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's just you can alter the facts how you want to make them look a certain way, but at the end of the day, like from 1980 to now, our technology movement is astounding. Everything, all movements from 1980 to now, I mean, we've escalated in so many areas, but our government and the way that we treat our people hasn't changed at all. So therefore, when you look at things in that type of perspective, you have to say, well, then it has to be an agenda. It has to be on purpose.
Yeah. One thing, I'm not a socialist per se, but I do like watching when the British in Parliament do their debating.
Yeah.
Because they're actually all friends afterwards, and they'll kind of go at it. But if anybody's watched Parliament on C-SPAN, when Boris Johnson's up there with the crew, and before that Tony Blair and so on, you'll see somebody stand up and say, "Will the right good gentleman concede the following point?" And then they'll rah, 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 rah. And that's their way of saying they disagree. But the reason they do that is they get all that rah 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 out of the way while they're there.
Right.
And then they walk out in the lobby and they go have lunch together, and they get along great.
Right.
They'll blast each other in the House of Commons or in Parliament, and they'll get their little kerfluffle done, and then they walk out and they'll go have lunch. They'll go have a pint together. The animosity, it leaves the room. It doesn't linger. But in that room, they'll say, is the right good gentleman going to do this or going to do that, or what about this? Will you acknowledge this? In that sense, it's a much better system than what we have. Because what they're not allowed to do is stand there and insult each other and put each other down. They have to be respectful, even though it gets pretty heated. And then there's a lot of laughter, and they're always laughing. The tension breaks, and they all laugh. Somebody makes a joke. Somebody makes a joke about Boris Johnson's hair, and everybody laughs. And they break the tension. And so they accomplish so much over there. Not all of it do I agree with, obviously. England's kind of going way, way, way conservative as far as oppression goes to the populace, which I think is terrible. But all of that aside, it's a much more efficient system. And I almost wish we could kind of go to a system like that where you have somebody in charge for a long time, then you have politicians that can go in there and hash it out and then leave with an agreement. And they do that every time they meet. They literally agree on things. We don't do that here. We have a person go up and make a speech, and then somebody else comes up and makes a speech. The jerk on the right, the jerk on the left thinks blah, blah, blah. The jerk on the right's a liar. The jerk on the left is an idiot. In Parliament, they don't do that. And so if you guys watch it on C-SPAN, I wish that you would, you'll see them agreeing to all these things before they leave the room every time they meet. and they're all the different parties.
Yeah.
So they asked the prime minister, will you agree to blank? And he agrees to stuff for the left and the right, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, the Working Party, and so on, the Tories. So we need something like that, you know. And when they make those commitments on the spot, then that prime minister, he's now committed to do that thing. And then the people who work for him get to work right away making that thing happen. So if they say, will you fix the road over in Soho? He goes, absolutely. And right away, one of his people gets to work on figuring out where they're going to get the funds to fix the road in Soho. And they do it on the spot. So they fix national problems on the spot. I know America's bigger than England, but they did that in the old days when they controlled most of the world. They had that parliament when they controlled India and China and, you know, the Samoan Islands and the Falklands and so on. So there was a time when they controlled the greater portion of the world. They used that same system.
Yeah.
So maybe we can figure out a way to make our system more efficient.
Well, again, it's if they want to, you know. But T, man, I got to get out of here, man. I love you, dog. For real.
I kept you too long. Edit the crap out of this. Keep the good parts. Get rid of the bad.
Yep, it's gonna take me 2 weeks to edit this thing.
Well, make us sound amazing. Now, I do have one question before you go. You don't have to air it or anything.
No.
This gentleman in California, what's the story on this guy? Paula doesn't really seem to understand too much about what's going on, and she spoke to a woman who apparently works with the gentleman, and
yeah.
But he was on the Zoom call, and I guess he wants to do everything through her.
I'm not sure. Him and I haven't really spoke on Paula too much or anything, but he's the CEO of a radio station called NAB Radio, NAAB. His name is Michael Anderson.
It's a strange call sign.
And
Michael Anderson?
Yes. And he his stepbrother has been incarcerated for 44 years for a murder that he did not commit, and he's in
Michigan.
And he's in Michigan. He's in Lakeland. And
that's Travis?
That's Travis.
Okay, that's the same Travis I know. I know who that is. Okay, so that's Michael Anderson's
stepbrother.
What's the relation? His stepbrother.
Right.
That's his stepbrother.
Who I'm trying to get a hold of. I can't get a hold of a contact at Lakeland. They keep hanging up on me and denying me and put me on the recorder of death.
Call central office. Paula's got the person you should get a hold of, the communications director in the MDOC in Lansing. Mm-hmm. Paula has the contact info for you with a number and an email, and say the facility is refusing to help you schedule a call, and they will make them set it up right away.
Okay, perfect. I'll get that from her.
Yep, and they know who I am too, so say I'm the guy who's been interviewing Temi Jin Kinsu at Macomb, and Macomb has been setting up my calls with him, and I'm grateful, but Lakeland is just hanging up on me. They won't even talk to me.
Yeah, Chippewa as well. Chippewa is, because that's where I got those other three.
URF, horrible place. You are one of the worst places in the MDOC. Yeah, absolutely. It's a punishment prison.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, can I help Travis? Is there anything I can do to help Travis? I've got connections everywhere, including at Lakeland.
Just awareness to his case or anything of that nature. I won't know really too much until I speak with him and get an interview with him.
Number?
I do.
It should be about probably a 17 number, right?
I'd have to get in here to the files and look it up.
You can send it later if you want.
Yeah. I'm gonna send it to. I'm gonna send the information to Paula for her to send to you.
Send me his basic info. I'm going to start tweeting for the guy. I'll put some stuff on my Facebook, and I'll start sending messages for Paul to send out to all these organizations that we work with. I'll let actual innocent prisoners in England know about him.
Well, he has an article. Yeah, he has an article out on actual innocent.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
So yeah.
I have their list of innocents in Michigan, so I'll go through that too then, and I'll write Carol Strawn. I just wrote something for Matt. They asked me to write, so I'll write something for Travis too.
Okay, Danny Travis. Yep.
All right, cool. Yep, Danny. In the meantime, get a hold of Michael and let Michael know that I'll do everything I can do from this end. That Paula will jump on the Danny Travis bandwagon. I assume if this guy's that sincere about this, he knows the facts of the case. He knows that Danny's innocent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This guy's just not a flash in the pan. He obviously knows the facts of the case.
Yep.
So I'm going to trust his judgment on that, and I'll start tweeting about him. I've got a lot of people that follow my tweets. I'll start getting hold of some of the podcasts that have done my stuff to see if they want to look into this case. I've got people that are looking for innocent stuff. In the meantime, do you think we should try to work with Michael on this, on mine?
We can. I mean, he says he has over 3 million followers to his radio station, and it's. I mean, it's a very well put together organization. I mean, I've researched the hell out of it, and it's clean. They haven't been doing anything here lately, but they're getting ready to crank back up. So their YouTube channel has 100,000 subscribers.
What is NAB's daily agenda? Is it music, programming?
Yeah, so it's a lot of music. They have different channels. He's building a criminal justice channel now to do kind of what I'm doing, just bringing awareness to to innocent people in prison and things of that nature.
That would be amazing.
So him and I.
Get me hooked up with him so I can talk to him.
No question. Yeah, no question.
Yeah, if you could get him to, maybe you could help him arrange a call, and just so I can talk to the guy, because I'm on the way home, and maybe I can help him with this project. I would love to offer any input, anything I could do for the guy. I'd be glad to do. And in the meantime, I'll start doing stuff for Travis now, and then when I'm free, I've got a bunch of lawyers that I work with. I can actually go visit Travis. I can do all kinds of things for the guy. I have no problem taking him on. I think that's only fair. If Mike's willing to help him and willing to help us, I'll help Travis and I'll help Mike both.
No question. So we'll get it together, man, and we're gonna do it, man. So
right, cool.
First thing is to get you to the house. So
yeah, it won't be much longer.
It won't be.
So we got an amazing message yesterday. I'm not allowed to say too much about, but they made it very clear that things are happening. They're happening much quicker than we think they are, and that's really all they could say and all I could say. But it came from way up.
Yeah.
And Paul is very jacked. I'm jacked. We let David prove an innocence know, but otherwise we haven't said anything. We're putting a tweet out there that you're going to see. It's a very subtle tweet. We can't really say too much.
Don't. It is what it is. Until it happens, it's nothing. So all of this talk.
If this white guy is serious and he wants to build a criminal justice program, or better yet, a network, that would be amazing, because we have so many great people that we're tied to. I've got some people in my circle that you haven't met still, that I want to get you linked up with too.
Yeah.
And some of these podcasts that I'm tied to are really big. Colin Millett, for example, that's the University of Columbia, and their major law school. So, and he's really big on innocence and criminal justice stuff. That's the guy who's got John Cryer tweeting for me from 2.5 Men.
That's all I need is just awareness. People, like when I went up to Michigan, there were a few people that knew the channel. They came up, they were excited to meet me or whatnot, but it's like nobody knows that I'm doing this. And as soon as they turn, I just got a message from somebody yesterday that they're like, I had no idea that your channel was even out there, and your channel is like compared to everybody else's channel, there's no equivalence. So it's people just don't know that I'm doing this.
Paula emails about you. She tweets about you.
Yeah, she's my
I think you're mentioned on my Facebook, or both of our Facebooks too.
Yeah.
So you are. Yeah. So anybody that sees our stuff, they'll find out about you, and then of course I always talk about you too. So, but what I need to do is I need to get you linked up with all these other groups that I'm working with, because that's going to help you grow, and it's going to help your base grow. It's going to get you better guests than my bum ass. And that's going to help you grow also.
And even if they want to bring me on as a guest on their show to talk about whatever.
Well, I want that. That's what I want. I want you on those because A, you're fighting this fight. Also, you're an ex-con.
Right.
And so you know a lot about the system. You're speaking with that voice of authority. And that's really what we need. So the Danny Trejo story. He's famous because he was a prisoner.
Yeah.
And he learned how to get a hold of people and say, hey, your movies are not very realistic. I'm an ex-con. I did time in all these horrible prisons. Let me show you how it's really done. And you saw American Me, right?
Right. Yep.
That's probably the first movie I ever saw that was actually what prison is like.
Yeah.
That was very much like Michigan. The brutal stabbings, the rapes, all the horrible stuff. That's Michigan.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and I was like, that's the first movie I saw that was really, what prison's like.
Yeah.
And that's Danny Trejo. He did that kind of stuff. He was the one out there saying, here's what's really going on. Here's how they really stab people in prison. It's not some single dramatic stab with music. It's 16 shots in a small area so you bleed to death.
Yeah.
And so what I want to do is I'd like to get you, because you're a good speaker and you have very good ideas too. And a lot of these groups are conservative. I want to get you with them, and then you become another resource for them too.
Yeah, no question, no question. So, T, be
You
safe,
gotta come on
man.
my movie set.
Huh?
Renowned Films is making a movie. I said you have to come on my movie set.
Yeah, just tell me when and where I gotta be, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I want you there. Like, this is my other consultant guy. He's an ex-con. He's going to make sure this is all realistic.
No, well, there's no question about that. No question about that.
Cool.
So,
You'll be my Danny Trejo.
take it easy, man, and stay safe, partner.
All right, bro. Thomas, before I go, do you need anything?
I don't need anything, partner. I just need you to get out, man. That's
sure,
it.
Everything all right?
Everything is okay, man. I'm a survivor, partner, so I'm gonna make it happen no matter what.
Okay. All right. Did you stop recording? Because I want to ask you a personal question.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
All right. So.
Is everything okay at home?
Yeah, everything's all right, man.
You never really explained what happened. I mean, I got a message that there was an issue, and I never asked. I didn't want to dip unless you wanted to talk. But I mean, is everything okay?
It is now, man. I mean, I got away from the situation I was in. I was in an extreme toxic situation. It wasn't getting any better. There's no question that we had love for each other, but it just got to the point to where we never said anything nice to each other. We didn't touch each other anymore. There was just such hostility and negativity surrounding us. Nothing good was going to come out of it. So
that's really hard to come back from.
I left everything. Everything I had. We had a house together. I left everything in the house. I just left with a duffel bag. I just left with a duffel bag full of stuff, and I haven't been back, T. So it's.
Are you gonna go get your stuff?
I don't care about it. That's how toxic it was. Like, I don't even want that stuff in my cipher. You know what I mean? It's just like.
Really?
It was bad.
So where are you living?
Well, I'm bouncing right now. I'm going between my father's house, my mother's house, a couple friends' house, until I can. And the issue is.
So how long till you can get stable?
Well, that's the thing. Is the issue is finding a place. Like, I can't find a place until January. Everybody's moving to Florida. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they are.
So it's like there's a waiting list, till January, February, March. So that's the hardest part.
Do you want to stay where you're at, or do you want to go somewhere else?
Opportunity will take me anywhere. I just don't have any right now, other than what I'm doing with my show and such. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are your parents helping at all? Are you okay financially?
I cut off. So I Uber. You know what I mean? I do. That's why I have to get off now, so I can get ready and go Uber for the night and stuff.
Okay.
But I have my merchandise store that people buy. A small little thing here or there. But it's getting ready to take off, man. There's not a question in my mind. It's just hanging tight until I can start getting some sponsorships in, until one of these few little movies that I've done pays off. I've done some freelance movies that they're trying to sell the reels to now that are really good movies.
That's cool.
Really good movies,
I had
man.
no idea. Really?
Really good movies.
Is this stuff that Paula can see?
I don't think anybody can see it right now because it's still in an investment reel. So the director still has all of the reels and stuff until whatever that is that they do. But I have a piece locked in as an FBI agent working for a new miniseries that's coming out. So again, it's just time. It's just time is all it is,
So you have food, you have medicine, you have a place to stay, you have clothes.
Yeah, of course, yes. Yeah.
You need some help?
No, partner. No. I'm really good, and
sure?
I'm positive. And Paula has made it absolutely clear that if I ever needed help, to come to her, and I will.
Yeah.
I will.
All right. Well, you do that, bro. Because listen, I've been there. Trust me, I've been there.
No, I know.
What it's like.
I know.
If you need some help, don't be proud. You just call and say, "Hey, listen, man, I need a few bucks or something, whatever. Just let me know."
No, there's no
Need
pride.
me to send you something.
The biggest thing I need,
you're okay.
the biggest thing I need is awareness. Like Lakeisha, she's asking me, what it is that I say the same thing. I just need awareness. I just need people to understand what I'm out here doing, because I'm doing all of this for free. Like Temujin, I'll be on the phone with people for hours, mentoring them, counseling, talking to them. and I don't get a dime for that stuff. So it's just turning
No,
all
you're
of
a good
this
guy, Thomas.
time that I'm putting in into some sort of monetization to help my comfort, so I can help people better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, listen, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you making an income, and then that lets you do more good work. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
No.
But if you're hurting or something, don't be out there with nothing to eat and freezing and shivering on a street corner because you couldn't go to your dad's house or something. You let me know.
No, absolutely. There's no question. No, and it's not that bad. It really
Okay.
isn't. It's not that bad.
All right. So you got gas money in your pocket, and you got food, and you got a roof over your head, and
Yeah.
everything you need.
Yes, I have all of that,
Okay.
partner.
You're not hurt for medication or anything.
I don't take medication.
Okay, good man. All right, just in case though. Well, listen, if it gets bad, don't get all proud. Just ask.
I know that, partner, and I
Okay.
appreciate you.
Okay.
I appreciate you from prison offering that hand. I mean, that speaks.
It's not a problem.
There's people out here. There's free
I've been
people.
blessed to have some.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's free people that don't even make that offer.
Yeah, but you know what? You helped me before you knew me, and so you already told me who you are. You know how we do it. And that's how I'm doing this. So, you just let me know. But dude, if you're stuck somewhere or I don't want to find you sleeping in a bus station.
No, I'm too handsome. I'm too handsome. I'm too hung to be sleeping in a bus station.
Oh, you're just as bad as me. Listen, dude, I love you and I appreciate everything you're doing, and I'm here for you, and I'm going to be there for you when I'm out. In the meantime, don't get shot. It's a crazy, insane, violent world out there, and don't get stabbed. And let me know what I can do for you. In the meantime, get hold of this Mike guy, talk to him. Maybe we can make something happen.
No, I'm definitely gonna do that. The main thing is getting the interview with his stepbrother so that he can put it on his platform, available to all of those listeners, and that way he knows that I'm serious. You know what I mean? Because I got his brother's voice on wax for the air to hear. You know what I mean? And that'll lock us in. That'll lock us in. From that point, everything is golden now.
Paul some info so I can look at the facts of the case too.
Yes. Yep. I will.
Yeah. And I'll have her. I'll have her, if you want. I'll have her get on Danny's JPay too. As long as he doesn't write her anything inappropriate, he'll have that connection too if he needs it.
Okay.
And you might want to get on his JPay too.
Well, I don't want to associate with. I don't want to give JPay $1. I have inmates call me all the time with the securest shit that I have to put money on the phone to answer, but I refuse it, just because, and it kills me because these are inmates that are calling me. But I will not give these cocksuckers a penny of my money because I know that it's exploitation.
Well, look here. I totally understand, but as far as like a JPay email goes, it's like 20 cents. It might be more efficient for the work you're doing to play their game.
It could be.
Phone calls are different, but the JPay is only 20 cents for like 6,000 words. So that might be a more efficient way to at least do some of your inmate business.
Okay, I'll look at that. I will look at that because
and
that
it lets Danny write you and send you whatever information you might need, right away.
Got it. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Bro.
Okay.
All right. Be good. God bless. Stay out of trouble. I love you, old man. And let me know if you need anything.
Absolutely. Stay safe, T.
All right, Brett. Bless.
Bless you. Peace. So that's it, guys. Another 3.5 hours with Temujin. Hopefully he'll be home soon, man. It sounds like he will be. Again, this is a remarkable human being, man, and he's gonna do a lot of good when he gets home. So free Temujin, man. This is the Thomas Free Me Show. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's lengthy, but it is what it is, man. People got a lot of things to say. So until the next time, you guys take care, man. This is one love. Thomas Free Me. I'm here for y'all, man. Peace. I'm out.